Everyone in one spot.
Hello.
What?
What?
No, did you have a question for me?
Not right now.
Oh, God.
It's 3:30, Bob. You want to get started? Okay.
2 minutes.
I'll take some. Thanks.
See if I can do it without spilling.
I appreciate it.
There, it's on now. Yeah.
Yeah, when I first went, it was David Reporter, and I couldn't remember his name. Like, I was practicing it, but when we got to the meeting, I
You have to write it out.
Yes.
Because until you have it locked in.
Yes.
Because
Sorry about that.
One person can't have your eyes on it, you're still talking.
Welcome back. You came back a second time. That's good.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay, it's a little after 3:30, so why don't we go ahead and begin the meeting? We'll have a call to order and a roll call.
Commissioner Burling,
Here.
Commissioner Brzezowski.
Here.
Commissioner Mickey,
Here.
Chair Myers,
Here.
Commissioner Sowers.
Here. Great, well, let's go ahead and do a Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, great. It's fun to see everybody's faces. So, we will begin our meeting with public appearances. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern not on the agenda during public appearances. Each person's comments shall be limited to 3 minutes or as otherwise established by the commission. Matters not appearing on commission's agenda will not receive action at this meeting, but may be referred to staff for a future meeting. Persons are not required to give their names, but it is helpful for speakers to state their names so that they may be identified in the minutes of the meeting. That being said, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Well, hello there.
Hello, my name is Rami Allard from the Friends of Carmel Forest, and I have an announcement that we're very happy to say that Maria Sutherland has been appointed and hired as our executive director. She has lots of history with us. Some of you may remember and know her. She's been with our organization since 2007. From 2007 to 2010 as a vice president, from 2015 to 2019 as a president, and she's been on our advisory board since 2019. So she will be representing us frequently at this meeting, and she will be a happy face to look at. I want to apologize. I have to leave early today. It has nothing to do with not being interested in what's going on, but I'm very interested, as Robert knows. But she will be reporting back to us, so thank you so much.
I have a feeling that Rami heard how long our last meeting was. Well, welcome, Maria. Anyone else from the public care to speak? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Commissioners, Dale Byrne. I don't know if this is Carmel Cares or just me personally. It could be either one. But I brought this up at the traffic committee, but I started thinking it's probably more appropriate to bring it up here, since I think you're responsible for easements, bump outs, and medians, because we're going to talk about them later. So on Lincoln, right up around the corner here, there's this, I don't know what it is, but it's a bump out,
Grow out of the
little
ground.
island, I don't know what, but it's been there for 20 years, ever since I've been coming here, and it's sort of sad, and it's sort of taking up part of a parking spot, so people back onto it, and it's sort of a mess. And I really don't know what to do about it, whether to eliminate it or just make it smaller and cuter, because I know our Public Works Department could easily probably reshape it, but I just wanted to bring it up that it's something maybe you could talk about it at some point. And I've got some nice pictures of it here if you want.
Where on Lincoln is it?
It's right straight up, it's right down this way, right around the corner, just south, on the
I've
right
never
side.
seen it.
On the south, on the west side. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to bring up very quickly is an update. A couple months ago, you approved the landscape restoration project at Forest Theater. I just wanted to bring you up to date really briefly that it's moving along great. We had a really successful fundraiser, so we have plenty of money to do the project. And some of the plants were delivered today, quite a few of them, and we're gonna have a session tomorrow to place them. And then Saturday, we've oversubscribed with volunteers. Everybody wants to be involved, which is really great for community engagement. So there's a lot of excitement about it. And if you want to come by either tomorrow morning or Saturday and just take a quick look, you can see what's happening. And again, thank you for approving it. And I think you're going to be very proud of what's going to happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale. I think we're all really excited to see that come to fruition. Anyone else from the public care to speak?
This would not be about the medians?
That's correct.
It's not?
Right, and then if no one else from Chambers would like to speak, then maybe we should look online. Is there anyone online who would like to make a public appearance? Yvette, do you see any hands? I don't see any hands either, so I'll go ahead and close public appearances and then turn it over for announcements. Any announcements?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one announcement this month. As you noticed in the notification on the agenda on page 1, the third paragraph is a new paragraph because at the time of the posting of the agenda, which was this past Monday, the COVID transmissibility level for Monterey County was low. Therefore, if it's low, the masks are optional. You can certainly wear your mask, but it's not required to wear a mask in this room. And also, it's not required to fill out the COVID sign-in sheet or to, what's the other thing? Hold on. I got two.
Vaccines?
Yeah, you don't need to show proof of vaccination and boosters at the front door. Okay, now, next month or in the future, God willing, it's not that case, but it becomes medium or high transmissibility of the date of the posting, then this thing will say medium or high, and then back to what we were doing, which is proof of vaccination at the door and mandatory wearing masks indoors. So today, masks are optional. Hope that, happy to answer any questions on that. Otherwise, that's all the announcements I have.
Feel free to move the chairs if you want to see. It's okay.
Then no other announcements? Go ahead and move on into the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine in nature and do not require discussion or independent action. Members of the commission or the public may ask that any items be considered individually for purposes of commission discussion and/or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. And the first item on the consent agenda is to approve the October 13th, 2022 meeting minutes.
So I move we approve them.
I can second that motion if that's a
Looks
motion.
like we have a first and a second.
He did, so I
Yep.
did it.
Commissioner Burling,
Here, yes.
Commissioner Brzezowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Mickey,
Yes.
Chair Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Sowers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we'll-
Mr. Chairman, I'm very pleased because I wrote most of those minutes this time.
Oh,
That's not my forte, so not having any comments, I'm just shocked. But
good work. Looked like
Moving
everything
right
was
along.
spelled correctly. Nice work. Okay, so then right into the public hearings. Oh, you did the spell check? Good job. Let's see, what do we have first? Sorry, let me get there.
Yes, approval and denial.
And, right, so turning it over to our forester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before us, we have an application to remove a Monterey pine on Unipero 5 northeast of 3rd. The applicant is on the line, Miss Allison Folk. She submitted the permit application, and after inspecting the tree, as determined, I don't have the authority to approve the removal of the tree because it's not dead or dying or a high hazard at this time, so the commission would have to rule on the matter. The tree looks typical to that neighborhood of town. The tree does have a considerable angle to the trunk. It appears as though it grew that way as a result of a neighboring tree that has since been removed. So it's typical for in town. If you do decide to approve the application for removal, it is recommended that one new tree go in its place.
Okay, thanks. Anyone from the commission have any questions specific to what the forester has presented?
The only question I have, sir, so again, this is just for removal of the tree. The trimming of the other trees in the property are good to go, and that's been approved? Is there a
Yes,
issue there?
I can approve the pruning. It's just standard structural pruning.
The other question I had is going back, and maybe you can remind me on process here. If someone wants to remove a pine tree, I know I had a pine tree removed, and I had to have some kind of, I don't know, where they do stick probes into the tree and this or that to see whether is that a requirement as a part of the process of taking a pine tree down or not?
No, that would be added on testing through increment drilling. So basically taking a core out of the tree and seeing the percentage of wood that has decay, or also using sound waves to generate an image that also shows you decay pockets, but that's not a requirement, no.
It isn't a requirement, okay.
No.
Any other questions for the forester?
Question, did you discuss pruning of the tree as an option? It looks like you approved some other
Yes.
trimmings on the property.
Yes, so this was the only application for removal. So the other pruning is just standard healthcare for the tree. The pruning of that tree would not remove the concern of the property owner, the concern of that the tree could fall and damage another house as well as take out some lines. So pruning wouldn't reach the applicant's goal.
Okay.
Okay, and I believe then we have the applicant on the line. Does the applicant care to make a statement? Oop, did the line go dead?
Yes, she, applicant Allison Folk is on the Zoom. I saw her name.
Zoom.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's on
Allison's
the-
iPhone
oh,
looks like
she-
she's
she's
on
not asking.
mute. Al- oh,
Hi, sorry about that. I couldn't unmute. My other concern is that the tree is leaning on the power line in front of my house.
oh, okay, sorry, Allison. I didn't know. Had you been speaking before that and we just picked you up, or is that just is that your opening?
That was my opening. I couldn't
Okay.
get the phone off of mute. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
no worries. Just want to make sure we didn't miss anything before that.
No, it really is. It really is that. It's just the leaning of the tree, concern for damage to my property, my neighbor's property, and that it's leaning on the power line, and concern for fire.
Okay. Does anyone from the commission have any questions about what's Allison at all?
I have a question. How many other oak trees and other trees do you have in your front yard? I saw a lot of trees, but I didn't get a count.
I did make a map of all the trees on the property. I don't have it with me at this moment, but I have a lot of trees. This is the only tree of concern.
There's 16. In the packet, there's a site plan that lists out the other trees.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Is there anyone from the public that would care to make a comment? Doesn't look like from the chambers. Anyone online care to make a comment? I'm not seeing any hands go up. We'll go ahead and close that and then bring it back to the commission for discussion then. So who would like to open it up?
I have a question for the forester.
Sure.
May I ask, could you, I missed the power line, so could you describe the situation relative to the power line and if that presents a safety concern?
Yes, if I recall, the power line is the electrical service to the house. And I believe there was also a telecommunication line there. It is in contact with the tree trunk. If the tree were to go over, it most likely would pull the service out of the roof. It's quite a distance from the actual transmission lines, so I wouldn't anticipate that it would pull away from the transmission lines.
So it's really not a fire hazard for the most part.
Fire hazard is in the eye of the beholder. If for some reason the insulation came off of that service line, it could cause a spark and could cause ignition.
Just a reminder to the commissioners, please speak into the mic so that people online and in the chambers can hear you. I had a question actually for the forester again. So it wasn't part of the presentation. I know you're gonna, in your forester report later on, talk about the removal of trees year to date. I'm just curious if you could capture in our year-to-date removal of trees, what percentage are pines that are of similar kind of stature or age?
Do you want me to report on that
No,
at a
just,
future date or just kind of now?
Might give us maybe a ballpark. Just
I would say the majority of large tree removals are pines. The pines are kind of the same age generally. And they're being attacked by the bark beetles. So they're stressed because we've had such a long drought period, and that attracts the bark beetles. So then the bark beetles bring in a fungus, blue stain fungus, that clogs the vascular system of the tree. And then that furthers the attraction of more destructive beetles. So it kind of is a downward spiral. So I would say last year it was worse. I think it's slowing down this year.
Got it. But as I recall from the site meeting today, you didn't think that there really appeared to be much in the way of bark beetle manifestation, and you thought that there was a healthy foliage in the tree?
Yes, I didn't see, from a ground inspection, I did not see any indication of bark beetle activity in the crown.
And you did note a couple wounds in the tree, but you thought that it looked as if they were healing?
Yes, so there are 2 wounds that were starting to callus over, I would say roughly about 20-25 feet up on the trunk. That was weird, it went quiet. That could potentially be a point of weakness in the trunk, and that could be where the tree could snap off if there was a high velocity wind or that sort of thing. But one had been there for quite a while, another was a little bit higher up. That did have more pitch massing on it, which could be concerning.
Thank you. In terms of comments among the commissioners as to approving or denying this, there are some additional comments from commissioners?
Yeah. Just a clarification for the forester. So in the application, which describes the tree as presently dying, you would say that the tree at this juncture looks healthy?
It definitely,
in your opinion?
Yes, it definitely has green foliage, which would be a sign that it's still alive. And it did put on new growth that last year. So it doesn't appear to be in decline at this moment.
I don't have a question right now,
Could you
but
please speak into the mic?
oh, I'm sorry.
Is it on?
I think it's on. Oh, there you go. Sorry about that. It is very close to the power line. There are a lot of trees on the property. There's a lot of trees in that area. It appears as though the tree has sort of been turning to try to get sun and is leaning quite a bit towards some other homes. And it appears that if it weren't taken down now, that in a matter of just a few years, I'm sure that they would be back because it's larger and it's leaning more. And so it looks as though it's trending in a direction that's not a positive one from what I could see.
Okay, my comment is, I really think that we need to be able to be as comfortable in our property as we can be, and if a tree seems threatening, I think we should take it down and plant another tree where it wouldn't feel threatening.
My question, so if
Commissioner Stowers, please disperse.
yeah, if they put in a permit right now and we push it off, is that permit good for another review at some point in the future without additional fees to the resident?
I believe they're valid for 1 year.
Well, I'd like to make a motion, and I would move that we allow them to remove the tree, and best if they can plant another tall tree in another part of their yard.
Well, before anyone acts on that, I actually would like to make a comment as well. I didn't have a chance to.
Oh, sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
it's okay. Looking at it, I took a look, of course, directly underneath the tree as we were brought up to it. In the proximity to the home, I understood that, and I saw the lines. I can understand the caution from the homeowner and the concern. I did step across the street, though, to take a look at the canopy. Directionally, the way in which that tree is growing, it's not growing towards any homes. It's growing actually more towards the street or a driveway than it is towards homes. It's healthy. And this is a relatively young pine in consideration of the neighborhood right there, and it's a part of the neighborhood characteristic that happens to be up along Junipero. So for me, I look at that and it doesn't, from my perspective, I didn't feel the urgency of the owner for safety for the home itself, and so I would rather. I'd like to take in consideration a way to waive a future fee because they've presented, and I don't know how we could go about doing that, but I certainly think that would make sense. And I don't know, we'd have to discuss that process. But I don't see a reason to take this particular tree down. That's just my position. So.
Well, Sarah, you said you thought the tree was about 40 years old.
That's a ballpark educated guess based on the size. There is a cluster right there, and it does appear that a very large pine was removed, I would say within the last 5 to 10 years. So the growth of that tree could have been stunted by growing underneath a much larger tree. It looks to be about, I would say 40 to 50 years old.
And what's the usual, or what's a ballpark lifespan for?
Yeah, so the current literature is saying that trees can continue on indefinitely as long as something doesn't happen.
That's true for Monterey pine, you mean?
That's the literature is showing that that's true for all trees, as long as nothing happens. So typically it's an abiotic issue, so the weather, mechanical damage, something happens to the tree that prevents it from producing enough sugars to keep itself going into the future. So once something abiotic happens to the tree, like drought, then it is more attractive to the pests to move in, and then the pests tend to bring other pathogens with them. So since we have had such a long drought period, it appears that most of the Monterey pines are starting to decline around the same time because of the abiotic factor of the drought.
A question. Okay. I have a question on the, going back to the lines touching the tree, because I would say that how do you say, the tree is leaning, but you described it as otherwise reasonably healthy, right? But I also am sensitive to a concern about safety and being fearful of a tree on your property. So the lines touching the tree, is there a way to have us research that a bit, or to understand what is that common in Carmel? I'm sorry, I'm just new to Carmel. Do we have a lot of power lines touching trees? Is that normal, and is that something that everybody is okay to be doing?
Yes, there are many, many, many trees
Okay.
with all manners of wires attached to them. In some cases, insulators have been installed. It's the power company's view that they would prefer things not be attached to trees. And I would have to agree, but that's very common around town to see that.
So there was a motion that was made. I don't know if there's someone that would care to second that. If they would, then please do so. Otherwise, I'm going to make a motion to deny this request to remove the tree.
I'll make a motion to second it.
I'd like to, on the second on that though, I'd like to, again, explore the opportunity for the resident to be able to push their permit fee forward if they want to have it reviewed again without additional fees. If that's possible. I don't know if that's possible.
That'd be a friendly amendment.
Well, can we have a point of order?
Yeah.
Are we seconding the first motion
she
or
seconded
seconding
before
the
Brian did.
second motion?
There hasn't been a second motion, but you were,
I did
she seconded mine, and then Brian thirded it.
Thank you.
No, I wasn't third.
Yeah,
I thought that's what you said.
Maybe we need to take a step back. Commissioner Burling made a motion earlier, then there was some discussion, then Chair Myers made a different motion,
You haven't made a motion, have you?
I did.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
and
that.
then Commissioner Mickey, right, Mickey,
Yes,
made a second to which motion?
Sarah's.
To the first motion.
That's different.
I think that's a little bit unclean. I
Yeah.
would suggest that, start all over.
Let's start all over.
Start all over.
Let's start all over.
And also, while I have the microphone, if
Yep.
I may, certainly you can, the motion, if you choose to, can include a waiver of future fee for the same tree. Probably want to put a time limit to make it realistic, with 3 years, 5 years, whatever you wish. I don't know if that's enforceable, but if it's not stated in the motion, it won't happen. The 1 year clock will end. So you could attempt to allow the applicant to waive the fee in the future with a motion, and we could administratively try to make that happen. That's looking at me like I'm out of my
Our
mind.
two motions,
No, but let's start all over with the motions. I'm just
So we're
saying that
striking Sarah's motion.
if anyone wishes to make a motion regarding waiver of a future fee, or, up to a certain, to extend the waiver period from 1 year to X 5 years, you can make that motion. I don't know as staff if we can enforce that at this point. That might be a legal or administrative municipal code issue, I don't know. But it doesn't hurt to have that motion. Whether or not we can enforce it at a later date remains to be seen. Worst case is that with or without that motion being said, or worst case would be the applicant, if they come back in a year and 1 day from now, they would have to repay the fee.
Okay. Thank you for the clarity. And then we're going to go ahead and press the restart button on motions being made. And I'm going to open it up to Commissioner Burling, who would like to make a motion.
I move that we accept the idea of taking the tree down and have the family plant another upper canopy tree that can grow up and be a nice tree.
I second that motion.
Okay, we've got a first and a second.
That's a little bit easier. All right. Commissioner Burling,
Yes.
Commissioner Brzezowski,
No.
Commissioner Mickey,
Yes.
Chair Myers,
No.
Commissioner Sowers.
No.
Thank you. The motion is passed.
No.
Motion was
No.
denied.
Denied.
Yes.
Motion is not passed.
So, okay, let's work on this a little bit, right? We see, oh, please.
Were you going to make the follow-on motion?
I was going to.
Okay,
I just
perfect.
want to work
Okay.
together on
Yep.
this. So I'll make the motion to deny the removal of the Monterey pine and approve the pruning of the same at the applicant's expense. I would also add to that if try to word this correctly, if the applicant would like to reapply for the removal of this tree within a 10-year period, that the fee be waived.
I second that.
So we have a first and a second.
Commissioner Burling,
No.
Commissioner Brzezowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Mickey,
Yes.
Chair Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Sowers.
Yes.
The motion has passed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Then we've moved out of public hearings and into orders of business.
It's a real shame.
Orders of business are agenda items that require city council, board, or commission discussion, debate, direction to staff, and/or action. The first item, or the first order of business today, we are going to receive a presentation regarding the San Carlos Median Island project and provide input regarding island configuration and landscaping palette preferences. And over to our director.
Can we get this onto the screen? There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Okay, this is for our presentations on the San Carlos Landscape Median Islands project. I want to have two notes before we really get started. First note is that notifications for this meeting were handed out a few days ago for all properties within about a 300 feet from the project limits.
That's not true. I never received that.
It's not your turn to speak, sir.
I didn't speak.
Okay, well, whoever spoke. And we put in, I think yesterday we put in temporary delineators, just intended to be temporary. In fact, we're taking them down probably as we speak, just to mark the approximate location of where four smaller median islands would be placed. We'll talk later about a prior version of the design, which has two longer median islands. The current design is for smaller median islands. What we placed out there in the field was just the four smaller median islands, set out to confuse people with both at the same time. Okay, so there are three different projects here that all tie into San Carlos Street in the same area. So these are all city council approved projects. They were all approved as of the fiscal year 2019-2020 capital improvement program. So these are approved and funded projects. The first project is really the larger component of all, although it's not so much a Parson Beach Commission issue per se, but it's something you can certainly look at. This would include microsurfacing treatment on San Carlos between 8th and 13th Avenue. Microsurfacing treatment is a type of pavement. It's not a slurry. It's something new to the city of Carmel. This will be the first application in the city of Carmel Other neighboring jurisdictions have been doing this for many years, and it seems to be a cost-effective way for new pavement. So that's what we're trying there. This project also includes some pavement resurfacing on Junipero between 3rd and Ocean Avenue. We have some sidewalk repairs. And the next two really depending on the budget, because the bids are coming in real high because of labor shortage, supply chain issues, material costs, inflation. So if we can, hopefully, we'll be overlaying San Antonio between 4th and 8th Avenues, and also pavement on Monteverde between 4th and Ocean Avenues. The second component, that's all packaged together as one big design and construction project, would be a shared bike route along San Carlos between 8th and 13th Avenues. And the last component, last but not least, are the San Carlos landscape median islands. So I'm gonna go, dive in more on the last two. I think the paving speaks for itself, but certainly we want to talk more about bike routes and the landscape median islands. Most of this project was designed before COVID hit. We were about 90%. COVID happened, all projects were defunded and all put on hold. And I think earlier this year, right about July, I suppose, full funding back to where we were, and the project resumed. So this will be one construction project. We have not gone out to bid yet for construction bids, but we plan to within a matter of months. And if all goes well, according to the schedule, we would construct a project between approximately March and June of 2023. The remaining budget started out at $1 million. We have about $800,000 remaining for all of this. Most of it is going to the paving work. So that's the big picture. Okay, now we drill down on the San Carlos median islands. The funding for the project came about from the following sources with a total budget of $34,000. The city of Carmel funded the project with $17,000. The project was initiated by the late Barbara Livingston. It was her idea and her initial request. It was not her sole idea and sole approved project. It was merely, she started it. The city council accepted her donation as long as other donations from the Friends of, what they call the Friends of Lower San Carlos, which is most of the neighbors in that area, and the Friends of Carmel Forest also donated $3,500. So we started the project with $34,000, which seemed nice at the time. Like I mentioned, something about inflation. And okay, so how has that money been spent to date? Well, we hired an engineering consultant to do the paving well, just in terms of the median islands, we had to identify the location of the islands, which has to do with traffic evaluations. We can't put these islands in anywhere. I'll get into that in a little bit. But we have to look at traffic analysis, make sure that the islands are in a safe location, that trucks can still make turn movements at intersections, on and so forth. We had a first public workshop. I'll talk more about that soon. After the first public workshop, the project went from 2 longer islands down to what is now tentatively 4 smaller islands. So that was some re-engineering there. We also hired, as you saw in your packet, and you'll see again in the screen in a moment, we hired a landscape architect to do renderings for the larger version and the smaller version. So roughly, round numbers, we spent about $20,000 of the $34,000. Construction, should we go forward into construction on this project, the contractor will be cutting the pavement, removing the pavement and the base material, and installing asphalt rolled berms around the islands, but not installing the landscaping. That cost will be at least $14,000. So we're already over budget before we plant the first tree. However, this timing-wise construction should be done early summer. This will roll into next fiscal year budget, and the Public Works Forestry budget will be requesting additional funding for trees, shrubs, hardscape, whatever. That's one of the topics for today, is to identify the landscaping palette. So the city's forestry's operating budget would pay for the actual materials, and we would also, our field staff would install these materials, plant, watering, and maintain these improvements. And certainly, if any volunteers want to help us, open arms. Always happy to have some volunteers help us. Okay, so the first public workshop was held in January 2020 at Sunset Center. Commissioner Berlin, were you there?
Pardon me?
Were you there?
No, I didn't know.
Oh, okay. Well, everybody else was there. It was in the Babcock room. It was standing room only. There was people out in the hall. It was very well attended. There was public notifications. This was right before COVID happened. Remember, COVID happened around March. So at that time, I presented the project much like I'm doing now, except we had more plans and stuff all over the walls. It was a workshop. It wasn't a formal presentation. It was a workshop. So I talked about the paving. I talked about the bike route. Talked about the meeting islands. At the time, we had two 25-foot long meeting islands. One was located starting 60 foot south of 11th Avenue, and the second was located about 60 feet south of 12th Avenue. With that design, we were going to lose approximately 6 to 8 parking spaces, okay? Because you can't have meeting islands and parking and a bus or a truck. This is a bus and truck route, so you can't have all three within a half a street. Okay, so we would lose parking spaces, but just where those meeting islands are located. At that meeting, the forester presented landscaping themes options 1 and 2, which we'll see in just a moment. Option 1 includes a Monterey pine, a strawberry pine, a pine log, granite boulders, Carmel creeper, and mulch. Option 2 included much of the same, except no strawberry pine, or no strawberry tree, and 7 assorted varieties of shrubs and grasses. And the staff report will refer to that. Someone at that meeting referred to it as plush. That said, gee, I like the plush idea, and it seemed to be the consensus was the plush landscape palette. Okay, so here's the renderings that were shown at that time. Let's see. I think I already talked about what's in there. You see the Monterey pine in the center, a strawberry tree, the pine log, the boulders, and Carmel creeper. And up on the upper right is like a visual rendering of what it would look like on one of those 2 long islands. This was option 2, kind of nicknamed the plush version. And you can see again the pine tree, the pine log, the boulders, and an assortment of grasses and shrubs. And after grasses and shrubs, I'm getting into Sarah's area, which I know. I'm just an engineer. I don't know this stuff, but we certainly have our our forester is well versed in this and participated in the design and selection of these plants. Okay, so after we presented this information at the public workshop, we got a lot of feedback. Regarding the feedback on paving and the bike routes, there was no opposition that I heard about microsurfacing the pavement, despite being a first of its kind for the city of Carmel. There was a strong preference for the shared bike route versus having a dedicated bike lanes. The reason being dedicated bike lanes would wipe out all the parking, not only from 10th to 13th, but all the way from 8th to 13th. There'd be no parking on either side of the street to have dedicated bike lanes.
What's the difference between a bike route and a bike lane?
A bike route is a shared, the bikes go where the cars would go, hopefully one at a time. Yeah. So again, there's a preference for the bike route. There was strong opposition for the loss of any parking. So we took that into effect. I believe the new version has loss of 6 parking spaces instead of 6 to 8. So we tweaked it down a little bit, but there'll still be some loss of parking for even the smaller islands. There were concerns about a shared bike route along the truck and bus route, which was well known from the beginning of time. I should note that the bike route is in the general plan circulation element. So this has been established long ago as a bike route for the city. And not only that, this will be similar to the microsurfacing being a first, this will be the city's first official bike route anywhere in the city of Carmel. Everything else so far has been unofficial. This will be the first formally designed and implemented bike route. What's wonderful about this segment is really it's the hub of the city. It's right in the center. And from here, the plan over the many years in the future is to extend bike routes to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west. So it's right you think of a tire, it's kind of right in the middle. Okay, so that's where we're starting our bike route program for the city over a long period of time. There's also concerns about perceived speeding, both currently and after the project. Although it's been a couple of years now, we did do a traffic speed survey at the time. The posted speed is 25 miles an hour. The average speed was 25 miles an hour. Not to say that some people don't speed, because they do, and some people go slow. But the average speed is 25 miles an hour. There were a couple of, I guess I'll describe it as fender bender, or minor traffic collisions, no fatalities, no injuries that I'm aware of. So, but there were, over the, I don't know, past 5 years or so, there were some minor traffic incidents along that way. The signs on the bottom would be proposed as for the bike route. So there'd be signage. The first three signs would be the standard bike route sign. In addition to pavement markings, there'll be signs on the side of the street to show the bike route. It will say bike. Obviously, the bike symbol may use the full lane. There'll be share the road signs. And then on the pavement itself, on the right, they're called sharrows, which is the symbol of the bike, as well as those two, looks like the corporal sign, I guess. Or sergeant? Corporal? One of those. Okay? Now on to the comments about the meeting islands. The majority of the Senator Ramone crowd did support a beautification along San Carlos, as well as traffic calming. The thought is, we want traffic calming, we want beautification. There was a preference for a greater number of smaller islands. So rather than the two larger islands, how about, at that time we didn't design the smaller ones yet. So hey, how about more than just two, you know, if they have to be smaller, so be it, but more quantity than just the four. There was a preference for the plush landscape palette, which was option 2 that we talked about. There was support that the meeting islands would only be 6 foot wide and no wider, and have a rolled berm around the edges. There were concerns about trucks and buses damaging tree limbs. Trucks and buses damage tree limbs along the existing roadway. So yes, that's why our tree species needs to be factored in to minimize the conflict between large branches and trucks and buses. There were concerns about ongoing landscape maintenance. I shared that concern as the Public Works Director because somebody has to maintain that landscaping. And also, the larger the quantity, we have to move our crews from one island to the next to maintain it. So it's a little bit more efficient having 2 longer islands, but they're still within a couple of blocks, so it's not that big of a deal going to 4 little islands one at a time versus the 2 larger islands. There were concerns about traffic rerouting, and I think you'll probably hear about that today. For example, well, if we put these meeting islands in on San Carlos, traffic will say, the heck with San Carlos, and with the bike route. Hey, we're not going to go on San Carlos, we're going to go on Junipero, we're going to go over to Mission, okay? So you'll probably hear about some of those concerns today. And some residents just completely oppose the medians in the first place. I think you'll probably hear about that today as well. Okay, since that workshop in 2022, or 2020, so again, we put the project on hold for about 2 years. Recently, we redesigned the 2 25-foot medians to be 4 12-foot medians. So they're located as follows. There's a little plan coming up that drills down on this. The first one, this is from north to south. The first one is located just at the 10th Avenue intersection. The second one is about halfway between 10th and 11th. The next one is just south of 11th, and the last one is just south of 12th. And we estimate losing 6 parking spaces in this new configuration. Also, the new renderings is just the second. Option 1, it's similar, not exactly the same because they're smaller, but option 1 is a strawberry or a western redbud tree, with the granite boulders, a pine log, say 1 plant and mulch. Again, more of the basic palette. Option 2 is the more plush palette, strawberry or a western redbud tree with a granite granite boulders, and up to 3 assorted plants. I'll show you the renderings in just a second. It's also in your packet. So the question might come up, why not a whole heck of a lot more islands? Well, we have to consider, this part of the, goes back to traffic. We have to consider ingress and egress from each and every private driveway in both directions. So if someone's along that street, they have to be able to get into their driveway from the north, into the driveway from the south, and out of the driveway from the north or from the south. So that really narrows down where these islands can go in the first place. Also, the trucks have to be able to make turn movements at, to and from of the intersections at each of the avenues. We have to factor in sight distance. And all that work has been done by the engineer of record under my review. And of course, we don't have an unlimited cost for installation and maintenance. In fact, we have we have no money at all left for installation and maintenance, but we will work it out. We'll make it work. So here's the new rendering of the smaller. You see, it's only 12 foot long. You see, let's see. You see options here. You see a strawberry tree or the western redbud. You see a pine. You see some mulch. You see, say, a plant or two. This rendering also has the same idea, a strawberry tree or the western redbud. And it has an assortment of different plants. Looks like option 1, 2, or 3. Pick one of those, and then you have a couple others. So just a more assortment of plants. You can see up in the rendering. Let me go back a second. If you look in the upper right, you see it's more basic, but it also matches a lot of the islands in town today. This is a little bit more enhanced, or option 2. Okay, here's the construction drawings. I won't bore you with that because I've been bored enough on these, but you can see, just to kind of go over the locations again. On the upper left, this is San Carlos is the street going left to right. There's 10th Avenue, so the first median island would be just to the north of 10th Avenue. You can also see those chevrons, those bike route markings, as well as some signage. So this will be a bike route. This will also enhance traffic calming, so people starting on that new block will tend to slow down. The second island is on the bottom. It's kind of halfway in between 10th and 11th Avenue, we're shown. The third island is just south, about 60 feet or so south of 11th Avenue. And the last one is on the lower right, about 60 feet south of 12th Avenue. That's pretty much where we were able to find locations. There was a great, there was a desire to put something closer to 13th Avenue. We looked at that, we could not make that work with all the turn movement restrictions and egress from driveways and things. Okay, so the next steps. So after I get done babbling, open up the questions for me. Then we open up the public comments. I do want to point out that we did receive correspondence, I think. There were 2 emails, there was a letter and a photo. So I believe you have that, you have all of those.
Did we get any emails? I didn't see any.
I think there's some things that were here.
Oh,
Yeah, there were, right. But did you forward the first one? I think we got the first one earlier. All today, okay. Let's see. Okay, so open up. I would recommend your commission opens up the public comments and review the correspondence. And then I'll come back and seek for your confirmation. Do you prefer 4 islands that are 12 feet long? Or should we go back to the 2 25-foot medians? We're recommending as staff to go with the 4 12-foot medians because it seemed to be the intent of the community from workshop number 1. But now, if you have a difference of opinion, now would be the time to make that change. And we're seeking your feedback on the preference for landscaping themes. It could be option 1 for either, length of median, option 1, option 2. If we go with, you can also have a combination pack. For example, if there's the 4 12-foot medians, you could say, use option 1. For the first one, use option 2 with the western redbud. The next one could be use option, use option 2 with the, whatever the other, strawberry tree. Again, they don't all have to match exactly. They could be a variety pack. And I don't think the idea here is to redesign it. You would be giving staff general direction on what the commission would like to see in the landscape palette. And we'll work out the details from there. Once all that's done, once we're out of here today, we are scheduling a second public workshop. We didn't want to schedule it yet, see how this meeting went. And if I survive this meeting, then we'll have another public workshop, most likely in Sunset Center, not in the Babcock room, because we'll need a bigger room. Maybe in the auditorium. But anyway, tentatively December, if not December, then January, before we start construction, certainly. Then, when we award the construction contract, then this matter will go back to the city council. This is a council-approved project, as I mentioned at the beginning. Based on the input of workshop 1, Forest and Beach Commission input, the second public workshop coming up, they'll obviously consider that information to make the final determination of the number of islands and configuration, the palette, landscaping palette, that type of thing. So this is not the one and only decision-making body to determine exactly these things, but certainly this is a key commission to make good recommendations to the council for their approval. And that should be early part of 2023. I put February, March, the date's not certain. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And a reminder to the commissioners that specifically staff is seeking commission concurrence to proceed with 4 smaller median islands rather than 2 large islands, and to support the community's general preference for the more plush landscape themes. So with that, any questions about what was presented?
What did you say? That's what all they're wanting us to do, is agree to it? Is that what you're saying?
They're seeking concurrence, that's correct.
Got the wrong
That's the
person
recommendation, it's right here. Yeah.
here.
So anyway, questions directed?
And you could talk about microsurfacing if you wish.
Sure. However, anyway, well, material that's been presented before we'll go to public comment, please.
I just have and again, this is background, not having been here. Regarding the bike approach, do we have a group, has city council appointed, or does the city have a group that's looking at bike route best practices? I mean, we have some wonderful cities around us that have incredible bike lanes, bike programs, bike routes. And I would just wonder, have we incorporated any of those best practices into our approach in Carmel? I know that's outside the topic of our purview here, but a follow-on question would be, what do those best practices suggest regarding bicyclist safety and trees and medians on truck routes?
Okay, 2 things. You said that this is not within the purview of the Forest and Beach Commission. That has been a prior topic about what recreational components we have in the past talked about pickleball and not racquetball, tennis. We have talked about potential sports field at some other in the past. There are more bike lanes coming. We do want the commissioners to weigh in on bicycle-related components of future projects. In fact, we have another project just about to get started on design, so it's too early to share anything because let's get started. So bicycle comments and input and safety is appropriate for your commission to comment and weigh in on. In terms of the standards, city follows the Transportation Agency of Monterey County, is TAMC. They do have a bicycle and safety committee. We do have standards. We have talked to them about this project. We've talked to them already about the new upcoming project. So we do follow the regional standards. We're using the signage and the sharrows. We're using the standards for Monterey County, so nothing new. Did I answer your question? I hope.
Right, and I just, if you look at the picture, if you put the construction map, I was just curious because it looks like some of the proposed spaces are near intersections.
Right.
Right, so it just seems like if you're on a bike, that there's a chance someone won't you could be blocked right near an intersection. So I was just wondering if there was any best practices around where you have bike routes, right? What are the best practices and suggestions around planted medians, and should they have trees or just shrubs? Or just a question as to
Yes,
whether or
I would
not
say
we've
the answer
looked
is
at
yes.
that.
The engineer is well aware of the traffic safety standards of TAMC, certainly, as well as there's Caltrans requirements, but if no one's listening, I don't like the Caltrans. But anyway, we are following the TAMC requirements. The engineer of record is also looking at it from traffic safety perspective. So the two are married, are considered in this project. So I think the quick answer is yes. All those things have been considered.
Bob, I had a question. So just for purposes of this has been fairly well vetted already through the city council, hasn't it?
No.
No?
Only the initial funding, the project initiation and the funding was vetted by was approved by the city council. They have not seen this, other than they get status reports of the status, but they haven't seen like landscaping palettes and that type of thing.
So how about as far as the bike path situation with the city council?
They are also aware that this is a bike route. The council is very much in favor of this bike route as well as number 2 that's coming.
So this has been presented to them as a bike route on San Carlos and...
I wouldn't say presented after design, but at the beginning of the project, yes, this was identified as a bike route project.
Okay.
Director, you had stated that 90% of project completion was done prior to COVID. So just so I want to understand what that means. When I understand that the first public workshop took place in January of 2020, so prior to COVID.
Right.
At that time, when you say that 90% then of the project was completed from between January and March, or?
Oh, okay, let me clarify that. When I say the project, it's the $1 million big project.
Okay.
That big project with the 2 longer meeting ons was 90%. We took it to the workshop. They had comments. We were about to get, I don't know exactly how far we got. We were getting started on making those changes when they said, COVID, shelter in place, put your pencil down. Most recently, we dusted off the plans and said, okay, where were we? And then we finished that to the point where we can wrap up the project and go out to bid. The remaining component really is the meeting outlets. And we know there's opposition, we know there's concerns, and we haven't vetted it with the neighbor. That's what we're trying to do now before we get started on construction.
So I'm not clear, were you finished?
Oh, I have, go on, I have some other things.
I'm not clear what you're expecting from us. It sounds to me like you're for this project and you've got it all arranged. Is that the way it actually is?
Me personally?
Well, you and whoever works with them.
I work for the city. City council kind of...
I'm aware of that.
at least they did, at least before the meeting. The council has assigned these 3 particular projects, which we lumped together because, I mean, it's all on the same street. We might as well do it all together.
So has council
So it's a
accepted-
council-approved project. I implement council-approved projects that have to do anything to do with public works. I shepherd the project along the way. I don't live on the street. I don't have, my job is to relay all the information to the city council. Council, here's what the community says. Here's the plans, here's the specs. If you want to do it this way, community says X, Y, Z. So the council makes the final call.
So they're still opening to considering it as far as you know, or?
The council could cancel the median portion of the project. They could cancel the bike route portion of the project. They can cancel all of the project. In fact, they have at one point, but that was really because of the financial crisis of COVID. So until the construction contract is awarded, this is all planning and design and preparation. Once the construction contract is awarded, it's gonna be big dollars to say, wait, I changed my mind. So now's the time to make those final decisions on what the community as a whole wants. But council makes that ultimate decision.
See, to me, it's a very unrealistic project. And if you drive San Carlos very often,
Commissioner, right now, we're just asking questions about what's been presented. We're going to have a chance to discuss it, for sure. So let's try to focus the questions.
Okay.
Are there any additional questions? I have a couple, if not from anyone else. Is there any concern about the funding that was provided by private residents and some of our groups in terms of being in jeopardy if the change from 2 to 4? I just didn't really understand where the notion that came from the landscape, the determination of the length of these medians.
I know there was a refundable agreement with Barbara Livingston. Do you recall the Forest Friends of Carmel Forest did not?
We don't recall.
I don't recall, but the thought is if the project were not to go forward, the city would use city funding first. We've done that. And then we tap into the private donations, which were all accepted officially by the council. We'd start burning off of that money. If the project were to stop for any reason, if there's any money left over, like I said, we spent a large chunk of it, then it would be divvied up by proportion to the estate or to the people that made the contributions.
Okay, thanks. And then my last question was just in definition of preference. So in what you presented, you said that there was a preference for more versus less medians. And how is that defined? Was it just like there's 100 people and 51 people said they want 4?
No, there wasn't a scientific survey, but it seemed like a lot more people were advocating, yes, I'd like to see more islands. I don't recall anyone saying, let's just stick to the 2 larger islands. Maybe someone said, but if so, that was a minority of the Again, there was comments from the whole smattering of things, except microsurfacing, which is kind of where
It's the cool engineering thing.
But there's a lot of comments about all kinds of different things, but it seemed to be what we got out of it. Our notes at that time from that meeting was that the consensus was to have more quantity of smaller islands. And we didn't know 4 would be the magic number. So we went back to, okay, how many smaller islands can we get in here? And it seemed like 4 was the right bit.
I have a question building on that related to the 2 to the 4. So
Okay.
it looked like with the 2 larger islands, you said you would lose 6 to 8 parking places,
Right.
and that was a concern at the meeting.
Correct.
Was it presented that the 4 smaller islands would still lose 6 spaces? Like, for example, did you get reaction to still having a pretty significant
Right. Okay.
parking loss?
Good question. We didn't know the number 4 yet at that meeting. It's just, there's 2, losing up to 8 parking spaces. And there was clear concern to lose no parking spaces, if at all possible. Certainly not for the dedicated bike lanes where we lose all the parking. I mean, if we're going to lose parking, minimize it. Please minimize it. Although, since the consensus was to do the meeting islands, at least at that meeting, you have to. You can't put the meeting islands without losing some parking. So we try to minimize it. So the community at large, other than today, don't know that it would be still 6 parking spaces removed. That's why we're going to have yet another public workshop in a month or 2, and that's where that will be presented in addition to today.
May I ask a question about the previous meeting?
Okay.
Related to the parking loss, like in that community forum,
Right.
was the sentiment, how strong was the sentiment about the concerns related to parking loss?
Strong.
Okay.
So
Were they presented the option of not having the meetings in that meeting?
I believe there were a couple of comments about there was some comments about, let's just put in, to minimize speeding, let's put in stop signs at every intersection. I think it was right after we installed the stop sign on San Carlos and 9th at the Women's Club at the Sunset Center. And that certainly was effective in calming traffic because you have to come to a stop. So I remember at least one comment about let's put stop signs all along the way, which we could, but it's not a preference. It's, well, we could take it to the Traffic Safety Committee and City Council for approval. I don't know, personally, I don't think that would fly, but maybe. Certainly it doesn't help with beautification. It helps with traffic calming, but not, we're trying to get a balance of beautification and traffic calming. That's the objective.
Can I ask one question? So just to follow on that, so was the overall consensus within the meeting, if you went from 2 to 4, was the idea that it would reduce the amount of parking spaces potentially that would be, you know?
They request, well, again, 4 was not a known number yet. So,
Oh,
yeah.
But the idea
request
was if you-
minimize any parking.
Anything you could do to minimize loss of parking
loss of
spaces.
parking. So we, in a way, with going with the 4, we said, okay, well, we're trimming back a couple. Not
So
not
that's what
all.
you're getting for 4.
Getting a little bit better, but still, if we're gonna have to do median islands, we're gonna have to lose parking.
But you also said that if you had more, it was higher burden on the city in terms of maintenance and crews having to maintain 4 versus 2.
Well, Dale's going to do it all anyways. So.
Exactly.
No problem for Dale.
There you go.
Director, I have a question also.
Yes.
You partially had just addressed it with the beautification and it being a traffic situation. It does seem as though we're doing a lot of things in one area, and it seems as though you've chosen these smaller medians so that people can pull in and out of their driveway from both sides. Aside from that, were those areas that you felt that we should slow traffic down? Was there some other reason why you chose those specific areas to put the smaller medians?
No, other than at the beginning of the project, the thought was to beautify the southerly segment of San Carlos, so, with a preference around 13th.
Can you turn your way?
So we couldn't do 13th. The closest we could come was just up to south of 12th. And then we went from there, we extended up to the north a couple of blocks. So to extend it out a little bit, again, with the thought to beautify more of the road to help with traffic calming. But there was no specific, gee, let's put it here because that will for sure reduce the speed.
And in the process of this, was there much concern for the bike path also? Because if there's something in the median that's pushing cars out a bit and then we have a bike path on the other side, I'm assuming that this has gone through some other.
Yeah, as I mentioned,
best practices,
this is an established bike route.
Okay.
It is today, but it's just informal and not marked and striped or anything. Yes, there's concerns that it's a bike route on a truck and bus route. That was one of my bullets earlier. Yes, there was a couple of concerns about that. This is not the one and only street in Monterey County that has a bike route on a bus or truck route or on a collector or arterial street. Buses and trucks and cars have to share the road with bicyclists, period.
Yeah.
And certainly when we roll this thing out next summer, police, the chief is here, police will be ensuring, making sure that people are following the signs until they get used to it. And just like, very similar to the 7th and Junipero stop signs that we put in a couple of months ago. That was something new, the north and southbound Junipero stop signs are new, haven't been there ever. And it took some getting used to. There was, and we've been monitoring it, police have been out there enforcing, and now it works great. So kind of same thing. We'll have a police presence, and maybe have the speed trailer out there at first. So implementing that at first would be, I won't lose any sleep because I've done a lot more gnarly bike routes than this one. But certainly there is concern anytime you put bikes and buses and cars in the same lane. But again, this is becoming more common throughout Monterey County, throughout California, and probably throughout the country. So this is what we're going to see more and more of as people are encouraged to get out of their cars and not pollute and add to climate change.
So did the median start as a beautification more than traffic control, or was there a pressing reason why the medians were discussed? Was there something that was more, pressing for the medians?
The origin of the project was the late Barbara Livingston asked me and the city administrator, Jabrarig, if she made a donation, could we do a traffic calming / beautification measure near her home, which was near 13, but somewhere, wherever we see as appropriate, somewhere on San Carlos. So that was the beginning of the project. And then from there, there was, the Friends of South San Carlos Street came into being. Mr. Byrne, Friends of Carmel Forest, all contributed. Hey, this is a great project. Let's pool our resources. And it was essentially matching the city's funding, $17,000 each. So that was the origin of the project. Of course, at that time, we didn't know how many islands or the palette or exactly where they would go.
Right.
The concept was approved.
Okay.
Again, traffic calming and beautification. That was the key.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions for our director?
Use of the speed limit in the testing that's been done, Bob, is that 25 is kept as people are under that or with that mostly? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe I could ask the chief if we come up and make a comment on that. What I do know for sure before that last meeting, that workshop, that we did a traffic study at that time. The average speed was 25. We'd like to see it lower, but that's the data. It was 25 miles an hour, which is the posted speed. Again, some go a lot faster, some go slower. So
we really don't need traffic calming. It's more whether we beautify.
wow.
The net result is that there's a possibility for calming.
I went to Carmel schools.
Any measure to calm traffic is beneficial. Any measure to calm traffic is beneficial. We don't want speeders.
I walk it all the time, and I don't see them speeding very much.
Today we have no medians. There's speeders and there's non-speeders. The average, we can certainly do it, and we should before construction. We'll do another speed survey. Like, if it's the same, I don't think much changed in the past 2 years. Probably be 25 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different story about do we want to change the speed limit. I think we should do, what I would recommend is we implement the project roughly as it stands with,
I
as
hope you
council
give us
approves
a
it.
chance to comment pretty soon
Yeah.
before I pop.
And if we see more speeder, maybe we do need to adjust the speed limit up or down or something, but we're not there yet.
Okay, so it sounds like, commissioners, we don't have any additional questions for what was presented by the director. Thank you. We're going to open it up to public comment. And we'll start in the chambers. It looks like there's a number of people that would like to speak. So I'd ask when you approach, if you care to state your name, that would be appreciated. You certainly don't have to. And we'll have a time limit, so you'll most likely, we're going to, oh, got it. Okay, perfect. So we can see that. And if you would please manage your time as best as possible, appreciate it. And once we're done with the chamber, then we'll open it up to anyone that's online. And I believe then we also have some additional correspondence in writing that we'll review. So, hello.
Good afternoon. My name is Marv Silverman. I've been a permanent full-time resident of Carmel for over 26 years, the last 25 years of which I live in a house that I built on San Carlos, on the west side of the street, just south of 12th Avenue. So I'm very familiar with our major north-south conduit in our little village, where we have tremendous number of MST buses, tour buses, and huge trucks, many of which we know clog up our commercial area during a great time deal of the week. I've taken the occasion, since I knew this meeting was coming up, to standing in my driveway and watching some of the traffic come by. And these large vehicles, the trucks and the buses, come within 12 inches to 24 inches of cars that are now parked along what would be the curbside of San Carlos. We put in a median that's going to be, I don't know, we didn't talk about the width of it, 6 feet. Okay, so now we're pressing 3 more feet to the right of every vehicle, which is going to come in such close proximity to vehicles parked on the side of the road that there will, I guarantee you, be scratches and dents. You cannot get those huge trucks to push 3 feet more to the right, going north or going south, without impacting the vehicles that are parked along the way. Only this afternoon, as I was driving here north on San Carlos, between 10th and 11th, we had these orange delineators that Mr. Harari described were set up. There was no way that any large truck could have gotten through where the delineator was and the cars parked on the curbside going north between 10th and 11th. We cannot afford to lose parking places, not 2, not 6, not 8, not any. When I backed out of my driveway this afternoon to come here, there is these delineators set up just south of 12th. When I pulled out, I had to make a big swing around what would have been the island where the delineators are. It would be very inconvenient. It would be very unsafe. And so I have to conclude by saying with due respect to my late friend Barbara Livingston, there is no way in the world we should have any medians at all on San Carlos. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Hi, I'm Vera Jin, and I also live on San Carlos between 10th and 11th on the west-hand side. So many things. First of all, I don't mean to say that you didn't tell the truth, but unfortunately, I wasn't at the meeting. My husband was at the meeting in January of 2020. He said not one single neighbor said it sounded like a good idea. Not one of the people that lives on San Carlos liked the idea. It sounds like a vanity project for Barbara Livingston, which, God bless her, she did a lot of work for the city, so maybe we can name a building after her or name a room in the library. But we don't need to mess up the parking and the traffic on San Carlos. One of the issues for me, of course, the parking is always hard. You have to remember that the Sunset Center is between 8th and 10th on San Carlos. Anytime there's an event, there's almost, I mean, I would be willing to bet every person in our neighborhood parks in front of their own driveway so that they have some place to park their car. Carmel, if you have a single lot, you're only allowed a 1-car garage. Anybody that has 2 people that lives in their house, they have 2 cars. So that means one of my cars is always on the street and one is in the garage. And that's for the people who actually have room in their garage for a car, right? A lot of people don't have room in their garage for a car. The bicycle situation, I mean, I don't know why we need to put a sign that says bike route. We don't have any bike route. There's no bike route signs in Carmel. We don't have bike routes. If you're going to do a comprehensive bike route through the city, I'm all in favor of it, but there's no reason to have a 5-block bike route, because that's all you're talking about. You're talking about 5 blocks that we're going to designate as a bike route. You're not going to get any place in those 5 blocks. You could walk, I guess. Anyway, I think the whole median idea is a bad idea, but if you approve medians, if the city council approves the medians, which I don't think they should do, there should absolutely be no trees in them. Do shrubs, do plants, do bushes, but no, you don't need trees with limbs that are sticking out. That's ridiculous. It completely eliminates your line of sight. So to me it seems, I think it was awesome. Barbara wanted it. I thought it was great. I don't know who the Friends of Lower San Carlos are. I'm on 10th. Maybe Lower is from 13th to San Lucia. I've never heard of them. Nobody's ever asked me for money. And I don't know if maybe it was just a couple of Barbara's friends who wanted to honor her. I don't know who it is. I guess that's it, but I, my husband, and all the neighbors on the street that I know are terribly against it. We can't afford to lose the parking places. We don't need a bike route sign. People ride their bikes on San Carlos anyway. We don't need a bike route sign for people to ride a bike. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Is there anyone else from Chambers that would care to speak?
Hi, my name's Kirk Schroeder. My wife and I, Nicole, live on 12th in San Carlos in Carmel. We've been full-time residents for, as long as Marv, 23, 24 years. I'm well aware of the traffic on San Carlos, as you can imagine, and there are speeders that occur there for sure. But I agree with the previous two speakers. This is just a bad idea. I've seen the trucks come through there. This is going to squeeze down. Not only is the loss of parking, which is a big problem, but it's going to squeeze traffic down into places where it shouldn't be. The trees, I completely concur. That's even dumb on top of dumber. What I think happened here, the traffic mitigation problem, it's like you said, 25, the average is 25. It is what it is, right? There's one of the main routes coming into Carmel. So completely against it, doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. One thing I will add to the previous comments, I was at the January meeting 2 years ago, and I came away with it. I didn't hear one single person, I think maybe Dale, who, God bless him, he's done great things in Carmel. I love Carmel Cares and what he does, but I didn't hear any positive comments coming out of that meeting. I was there, and I think if people were ready to string people up, from what I remember. So I don't think the sentiment of some people, I think the bullet point said some people had a problem with traffic mitigation. That's not what I remember. I don't remember anybody in favor of it, because we all deal with the traffic congestion now. The events at Sunset Center are just some of them. I mean, so this would just make a bad problem worse. So if you're going to fix a problem, get us street addresses. That's what I would say. Okay. Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, there was no notice, and I know other neighbors who didn't get a notice either of this meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kirk. Is there anyone else from Chambers that would care to speak? Okay.
Hi, I'm Catherine McPartland. I live on between 10th and 11th on San Carlos. We've had the house since the early 60s. I've raised 2 children in that house. We have 4 cars. We have friends with cars. They come and park. We love to open our doors to people. Oftentimes I have to park blocks away when Sunset Center is doing something, or Friday or Saturday. I'm totally against the entire thing. I don't think it's safe. I think if we want to honor Barbara, let's put our wires underground. Let's not, let's do something positive.
That's a great idea.
Let's build a garage for our tourists to park in that we want to come and support our town. Let's do that. Those are good, positive things. Let's not take away from our street. And if we are really a democracy, the street has a say in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Hi, my name is Helena Rose, and we moved into town just this February, and we fell in love with everything that has been created before us, and we love that streets are dark at night. We love that there's no addresses. We love the slow pace of life, and we love the community. And we live on the corner of southwest corner of 12th and San Carlos, and we have 4 redwood trees in front of our house. So there's 4 redwood trees. If you know how trees grow, they will only get bigger. We have a lot of vegetation compared to other streets and other corners. We do have a lot of vegetation in comparison. I wrote the email. I took the ring camera out, and I observed how the cars are going around the pylons at night. So the pylons were hit at least 4 times. And that's the pylons, right? It is a major bus route. It is a major truck route. Everyone has to wait out right now. And I took the video. I was there with my neighbor, and we were observing how the UPS truck just parked on the side under the redwood trees, and another truck had to go around, crossing the midline, and then swerve, almost hitting my other neighbor's car. So I believe this project is just not very thought through. I don't have, I'm a new person in town. I don't want to be judgmental. I don't want to be reducing people's opinions, but I see that it could be an obstacle, and it could create a lot of traffic accidents. The biggest speeders, right, is the bus drivers. This is not the private cars that are speeding, and this is not, contractors. Contractors, they don't care, right? They would just whiz through the street without even looking, right? And the buses go probably above 30, 32 miles an hour, right? And so that's what I observe from my window every single day. I see a lot of older people driving and screeching at the middle of the intersection because they couldn't see around the corner. Unfortunately, the 12 and the San Carlos are shaped in a way that if you look on the left, the whole landscaping, it kind of goes up. You don't see the upcoming traffic very well. So you have to pull out to see from the right, the upcoming traffic. There's 2 trees, one oak tree that grows right in the corner. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, I love it, but it obscures the view. And people almost get into an accident in that intersection alone. About the bike signs, you know what, everyone shares the road peacefully. Everyone watch out for the bikers. And but I will not encourage my kids to ride their bicycles on San Carlos with the trucks and bus traffic, even right now. All right, putting the bicycle lanes. Bike clubs will actually look into the bicycle sign lanes, and what they will conclude is that they can put out the race through town. Okay, do we want that? Do we want that major attraction? I mean, we have the Big Sur Marathon, right? And it's a small town. With all due respect, it is just a lovely, lovely place to be. And it is a small town that we should cherish. If we attract more people, I don't know if we can carry that load.
Thank you, Sienna.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from Chambers that, okay?
Ramey Allard with Friends of Carmel Forest. We put money towards this, and we honored Barbara already.
Thank you, Randy.
We honored Barbara with her thoughts and ideas about beautification and slowing the traffic down there. I'm sensitive to what I heard today, and I think I would like to see stop signs, see speed bumps, and instead, why don't we beautify the front of Sunset Center? Because we all know that trees in the landscape beautify and slow traffic. So why don't we concentrate on taking this money and putting trees alongside the front of Sunset Center and along the right-of-way of those areas? And I see it to be a very, very dangerous situation with the 4 little islands and bicycles, and one of those plant species, the western redbud, as it's pictured in that photo, is an eastern redbud. The western redbud grows like this. It's a big, huge shrub, and it is going to block. I can absolutely see, one of the ladies back here had said, bicyclists are going to come through. That shrub is going to be in a blind spot. There'll be deaths with bicycles in there. So I would rather see we take that money and put it into trees along the right-of-way and in front of Sunset Center and beautify that.
Thank you.
Wait, I do want to comment on that, Bob, because, and it's a good idea, except in front of Sunset itself, it's historic, and the no new trees are supposed to be to close off what we can see of Sunset. It could be up in the upper part toward the northern part would be fine. But we have to not cover up Sunset Center itself.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Martin Mitchell, and I own the property, the Zen House, which is located on 4 northeast of 11th. And I'm right next to, or right adjacent to, the proposed first median. And I am in favor of beautification. That's why I moved to Carmel. I'm not in favor of the loss of parking. I've witnessed the events at Sunset Center. I have a non-functional driveway and a non-functional garage. They're too small. I can't fit a car into it. If I park my car in my driveway, I block the sidewalk. I have to carry the car onto the sidewalk in order to get close enough to get my car onto my own property. The loss of 4 parking spots, I assume, would be in direct relation to my property. If I lose my parking spot in front of my property, where am I to park? Where am I to unload my groceries? How am I to, have the common, convenience of being able to park adjacent to my property? How are any of these other homeowners going to facilitate the use of their properties? In honor of Ms. Livingston, I believe something should be done with the monies that were donated or raised. However, I'm against the privatization of one individual in a large city, in a large town, where a lot of people have done some good for this community. So I think that given that there's other areas that could be considered that don't impact so many factors and public health. Garbage day is another thing. I witness it every Tuesday. They do a great job. However, they will be parking and blocking those medians as they collect trash. You're going to force people into the oncoming lane to maneuver around these trucks. Same thing, a situation is for emergency vehicles, fire, police, what have you. It's a truck route, and it just seems, that we're trying to cram too many things into such a tight area already. And I just fear that the end result is going to be failure on multiple parts of this project. However, my biggest concern is that it potentially is a loss of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
Haven't been up here in 4 years. No, actually, second time in 2 years. But could I have the staff put that last slide up of the, before you start my time? Can you hold my time for a second? Yeah, that one, perfect. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am, that's perfect. Great. Good afternoon, Chairman Myers, fellow commissioners, staff, and the first time I've ever seen our police chief for the last 30 years ever at a Forest and Beach Commission. Thank you so much for being here, honestly. My name is Steve Dallas. I'm representing my mom, Hermina Dallas, today. I would like to thank Bob Herreri, even if it was the very last minute at 2:34 p.m. He did answer the questions. And looking at Bob's workload, which you will see later in his monthly report, he is completely overloaded, as I see. He's just got a full staff just recently, and the man is completely overloaded. I sent you all an email, and I know you have that, but I would like to submit this to the record. I don't know if you've seen what he wrote back to me at 2:34 p.m., answering the questions in detail. One of the main issues I have with this project is the process, or lack of process. In the staff report that was given to all of you and the general public, there was no site maps, as Mr. Herreri showed on pages that showed actually where the different locations, proposed locations of the thing. So the general public really didn't get to see exactly where these 4 locations were, except they saw today and they have a really strong opinion of, no, we don't want these. You and the commissioners and neighbors and general public could not see the pages that Mr. Herreri sent me of pages 16 to 20. To make good, informed decisions, also no letters in the packet for you to review in a timely manner. You got to the dais You got to read them, hopefully. It's very difficult to do that because you're making a big decision. Noticing was not given out to everyone. It was stated that it was 300 feet as the proposed project. I just talked to 4 of my neighbors here. My mom's tenant didn't get it. My mom's other tenant, a block over, should have gotten it. Neither one of them got it, or this place would be absolutely packed, similar to what you saw at the public workshop, where it was standing room only, wall-to-wall people. So I don't think a lot of people knew about this. I have, that's it. Lie within 300 feet. There was no mailings also in regards to this meeting today. The notice that was given out was not correctly noticed. It did not state where to go to for your commission meeting. So technically, I believe if you talk to your city attorney, you would have to continue this to a future date because it was not noticed properly. If you look at the notice, and I think this lady has a notice right here. Yeah, there was no time or location of the actual meeting, and we can submit this into the record, or she's more than welcome to submit it into the record. So it makes it very difficult unless you know how to get to our website. There's no way that was 3 minutes. Okay. I believe a formal traffic study is warranted for this project. This has buses, trucks, emergency route out of town with grave issues and problems without a thorough venting. There are 2 projects here. One is the medians, one is the bike path. Everyone talks about beautification, but if you look at that they drew up of how many signs in our public code, it says you're not supposed to put signs all over there are at least 20 or 30 signs that are going to go up there. These neighbors are going to be going ballistic just on this bicycle path. Now I can understand putting the things on, the little blue strips down here, but when you put 100 signs on each block, it does change the character of that whole block. It changes the character of what these people bought these pieces of property for as where you live in town. I would ask the chair and this commission to take public input and continue this meeting after all parties have been properly notified. If I was currently the mayor, I would not have this meeting until you had another public workshop, then bring it back to the Forest and Beach Commission, which is you, then you send a recommendation up to the city council. But what's happening here is you're going to take a little bit of your input today, which you've only heard from a few people, then have another public workshop, but you don't get to speak again as a commission. And that's just unheard of. You should have public workshops, then a commission hearing, another commission hearing if you need to, and then forward your recommendation. Also, the staff could very easily take out this project, whether it's the medians or the bike path, and put that separate into the proposed project. So it didn't have to hold up the slurry mix or anything like that, I don't know what it's called, micro something or other. But I wanted to thank all of you for your time and effort in serving on the Forest and Beach Commission. I don't know many of you, so I'm sorry, but I just wanted to thank you all for taking the time. But this project goes not just 4 years ago, it goes back about 20 years ago. If you really look at the history, when Mayor McLeod and Barbara, they all served together when Sue was the mayor. So this doesn't just stop here. There's more history that people don't know about. So thank you for your time, and again, I would ask you to please continue this meeting after a public workshop. There's no rush. It's been sitting on the shelf for 2 years, and Bob will tell you he's got plenty other things to do besides this, and I don't think our staff should be, we should rely on Dale every time we do some new project. We can't even take care of our tree stumps and other things, and Sarah can justify this, and I just hope that you as a commission look at the big picture. They just got 60 new trees. Let's get those planted and watered and maintained and do that before we start messing up new projects and make them dangerous for our whole community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve.
Good evening. I'm Janie Marchman, and I moved back home about 6 years ago. My family's been here for 5 generations. This was always a place of peace and beauty, and walking with my grandpa and planting some of the first medians with him so they wouldn't be tarred over, as he'd say, by the city. I live on the northeast corner of 11th and San Carlos. I have a huge picture window in a very old house, so I see a lot. And my number one concern is safety. Currently, the trucks are not taking the truck route. They're barreling up 11th, and I'm talking about the 18-wheelers and the food trucks. we're losing 2 historic cypress trees. They've knocked out 12 feet of asphalt. Senior citizens are tripping. After 5.5 years, I finally got a response from the city. So my concern is if we do this beautification, it's gonna be one more thing in their mind, how am I gonna circumvent it? And I'm scared about that barreling up 11th, using Mission Avenue. We've got more kids in our neighborhood than ever, right? They're running into the side of my car. They're this far from our property line because of the asphalt that's been lost. So I would love us to think about, not devil's advocate, maybe that's the word, about safety. That's a big one for me. I sit there, I see it all the time. It's crazy. So as far as having visualized bike lanes and cars and trucks, and now we have RVs parking, now we're gonna lose 6 places. Our garage is too small, we can't put a car in it. So and I am gonna end up parking in the dark 6 blocks away, which I don't really wanna do that. So I just ask that we look at the whole thing. We fix our streets, right? Everybody's falling. The sidewalk's sinking in front of my house. We have people falling every day. Yet we're gonna plant flowers in a median. I just ask that we look at Carmel as a whole and the village as a whole, right? Beautify it, but don't destroy it. Don't make us look like a condo community, right? Where we have all these painted things in the streets and everything looks so picture perfect and we can pick between 2, types of foliage. Remember the big, huge baskets of fuchsias that used to hang down in the medians in Carmel and the simple little flower books? There were more bikes then than now. Let's just look at the whole thing. There's too much that our city needs from safety. I see it, I'm getting hurt by it, right? And just rethink it. I think it's getting way too complicated. It's just gonna ruin the flow, the look, the feel as the heart of Carmel. Because right now, everybody's speeding. It's bikes, it's electric skateboards, it's trucks, it's cars, it's RVs, it's motorcycles, it's the kids with the revved up cars. So thank you for hearing me out. And I just am afraid that we're gonna become Palo Alto. Thank you.
Thank you, Janie.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Miguel Gutierrez. I live on San Carlos between 10th and 11th on the east side. And my concern is also for safety. I make a left onto San Carlos on 11th Street almost every single day. And I have to encroach onto the traffic to look to my right to see the oncoming traffic because it goes up a hill and there's redwood trees on her corner. I have to move my car past the redwood trees so I can see the oncoming traffic, and they are proposing putting these medians there which would block the streets even more, making it even more dangerous. Also, in just a short time that the cones went up, I've seen and have pictures of probably 4 or 5 different cones that have been taken out by cars, just like lying on their side. I also have a video of a fire engine approaching one of the marked out cones, and they had to physically slow down. You can see them pump their brakes and maneuver around the little proposed area where the medians are gonna go. So I would like at least for you to consider the fire engines and ambulances going up and down the street, because as the medians are marked out right now, they have to slow down. And that's my main concern is safety, and I would propose that you do not put any medians on San Carlos. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the chambers that would like to make a public comment? Doesn't look like it. Why don't we look online and see if anyone has any hands up? Oh, let's see. I think that's fine. We can have, go ahead and come and approach. It was Catherine, correct? Yep.
We didn't get notices until yesterday.
Sorry.
So the notices were yesterday, and I'm sure you all have a copy of it. There was no time, date, or place. I had to call around and come down here to find out. where the meeting was. It was almost like you didn't want us here.
We wanted you here. We're happy to have you. This is the biggest crowd we've had in years.
It wasn't inviting.
I think the point is made. Thank you. Appreciate it. It looks like there's at least one hand from our online Zoom. It's Christina De Maria.
Yes, hello. My name is Christina De Maria, and I'm the past president and the current treasurer of the Carmel Women's Club. We're located at 9th and San Carlos. And I spend I don't live there, obviously, but I spend time there. And several concerns about our membership is quite, expansive in age and ability of getting around. And so losing any parking spots is really tough. We're the very first block from Ocean where you can park all day. Everything, to the north of us is 2-hour parking. So our parking is always very impacted by people who work in town. Also, just the safety of putting more obstacles in the road. When I'm at the club, many, many times there are fire engines or other emergency vehicles going down San Carlos, and I feel like putting more obstacles in the road just would be a danger. And I feel like there could be another way to honor Barbara and do a beautification project that wasn't right on a very busy street. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Let's see. Do you see any other hands? Is there anyone else that's on Zoom that would care to make a comment?
Only me.
Oh. Cindy Lloyd. Yep. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Members of the commission, Director of Public Works, the audience members. By introduction, my name is Cindy Lloyd. I was born in Carmel 81 years ago. I lived on San Carlos between 13th and Santa Lucia, and I walked to Sunset School every day. And then I walked to Carmel High School every day, just as Sarah Burling did, who lived further on down San Carlos at Santa Lucia. Today, I decided I would drive San Carlos to see what the cones look like to delineate the possible medians. And granted, it slowed me down. I wasn't going fast, but I could see the problems of impediment for trucks and cars and the neighbors. What I did notice was that, and I have been looking at this ever since the meeting 2 years ago, I've been looking at San Carlos with this different eye. It's really beautiful. If you drive slowly and you look, there is a green canopy overhead created by trees. And there's really no need to beautify the street when you have something that speaks to Carmel so eloquently. As Barbara would say, trees are what make Carmel. When I was at the workshop 2 years ago, there was no consensus regarding 4 medians. It was just an idea floated by a member of the audience. We didn't have any voting to determine whether or not we liked 2 or 4. I'm sorry, this is only my memory of the meeting. My suggestion would have been to have a second workshop once the idea of having 4 medians could have been drawn up and presented as, should we have 2, should we have 4, should we have none? And then the members of the public, as we did 2 years ago, could voice concerns in support of or against the ideas. My biggest concerns are those of the neighbors who live on San Carlos, who understand the traffic, who understand the concerns for parking, who understand the concerns for the different types and sizes of vehicles who traverse that road on a daily basis. And so I don't think there's anything more I can add to what they have already eloquently stated. And I must say on Facebook today, there were some very, very beautifully written comments about it, and nothing was in favor of the median. So I would urge the commission to either table this for a further workshop or to decide that this is not a good idea at this time. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Cindy. Was there anyone else online that would like to make a public comment? I'm not seeing anyone indicate as much, so then we'll go ahead and close the public comments and bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, maybe I could answer a couple of those questions or comments?
Sure, if you'd like to.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly, we had very good comments from the public, and that's the whole purpose of this meeting. I'm not sure in any particular order. There were comments that do ring a bell. At that public workshop, when people, what I recall, people were in support of the medians, it probably is true that people who live on San Carlos were not supportive. But I don't recall specifically, and there may have been, and I think I mentioned, it was not unanimous support. But I don't know the location of where the people who did support the medians were located. So it is, we've heard a couple times now, people on San Carlos may not have been in support at that first workshop. I wanted to clarify that. Second is on the funding issue. So we had $34,000 pooled together. We spent about $20,000, say. So the city's funding has been exhausted for this project. So of the 17,000 donation, let's say 3 was already spent, we have $14,000. That would go, based on the donation for this project to the city council could decide to reallocate those funds to something else with the approval of each and every one of the donors. But I believe the intent, and I'll have to go back to that council meeting report, I believe the money gets returned in proportion to the amount that they paid. So I don't think it's up to the Forest and Beach Commission to say, well, let's put the money for beautification to a different project. Maybe that's a good idea, but I don't think we have that opportunity to do that. The notifications. Yes, the notifications were deficient. It did not have the time and place. They were done kind of they were done at the last minute. My understanding, I'm no expert in this, and I'm not the city clerk, my understanding is that this meeting was properly noticed through the proper channels. It was noticed 72 hours in advance, online, it was constant contact, all that kind of stuff. The notice, the handwritten, or the handed out notifications was meant to supplement that, not as the official public notice. It was a substandard perhaps method to enhance the turnout at this meeting. Here's more handouts. It sounds like maybe not all of the people received them. I had four field crews handing out those notices for 300 people in each direction. Yes, maybe missed somebody, or I believe when people said they didn't receive it, that not impossible. Somebody called that said that it was, it got all wet on the ground from the door jam. On the ground, it was all wet. What did it say? So it was not the most proficient manner in doing a notice. The intent was to hand out the notices, to supplement the official notice, to get more people in this chamber or on Zoom. I think it worked, at least to some extent, although it was not the perfect way of getting notices out. Let's see. Oh, and then there was a couple of comments about tabling this or continuing this Forest and Beach Commission decision or feedback to the staff to another date. If that were to be the case, I would suggest we do that after the next public workshop, because if we come back next month and that public workshop didn't happen, I have nothing, I could repeat the presentation, but I don't want to. I would have nothing really else to share, nothing else to say. We're not going to do additional analysis. I've seen no reason to do additional traffic studies. Yes, there are concerns, loud and clear. We all heard them, but all I could do is come back with the same information. So if you decide to continue, I would recommend that it would be after the second public workshop. Going back to my friend Cindy Lloyd's comments, and I appreciate her comments and everything she's done for the community. Just wanted to clarify that I think she was at that workshop. Just to kind of reiterate what was said in my presentation earlier, we didn't know, all we knew at that time was let's have 2 longer medians, period. Here they are. What do you guys think? So there was no opportunity for those people to vote on 2 versus 4. The first possible opportunity is today, because this is relatively new information. And personally, I would be supportive of honoring Barbara Livingston in some other manner, but it's not up to me. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks, Bob. Bringing it back to the commission for discussion and whether or not we would choose to move forward with any kind of advisement about the actual beautification of said medians, regardless of whether or not they are going to be installed. It's not in our prerogative, right? So I don't think that's what we've been asked for, and I think we can all appreciate the sentiment that's come in. I don't think anyone denies that, but let's just keep it to what we're meant to do today. And by all means, if someone wants to suggest that we just don't comment on it, then we can go down that path. But I'll open it up to whoever would like to say
Mr. Chairman, if I may, similar to the scenic pathway benches, this commission certainly has the prerogative to say they want no more benches, or they want no medians. That would be direction to staff. That's not the final determination. But that's also an option for your commission to make that decision or that advisement to the city council.
I'd like to.
Okay, there you go.
I'd like to be able to speak. Okay, so first of all, San Carlos is actually a very attractive street. And whether it needs to be more beautified, I think, is very questionable. The homes are nice, the upkeep is nice, and it's great. So it sounds like there's a lot of feeling against having anything on San Carlos to modify the speed of things, and it doesn't seem to be that bad to me when I drive it. And the things in the middle of the road are both going to be in the way for different people for different reasons, and also we need little plants at the very most. I think we should stop the whole idea. And in terms of giving some reward or notice to Barbara Livingston, who happened to be my babysitter when I was growing up, and she was neat. I really loved her. I thought she was a teenager, and she was very attractive and very with it and so on. Mm-hmm. But she's had all sorts of awards so far. So already she was city. What was the thing? Can't remember. Every year they give a city award, and she got one of those. And she was able to get what she wanted from the city, like that. The pine tree across the street from her would die, and she had a new pine tree in no time. And she's the one that wanted those little things that bulge out that make it harder for us who walk on 13th, but she thought it would slow down traffic and so on. So Barbara was treated very well. So we really don't need to think of other things. But I would recommend that we drop this whole idea, frankly.
So, I mean, I think my take on this would be is that I think, given the feedback we've had, it seems like there hasn't been enough community participation about whether the medians make sense or not. And I think Bob's point, I think at least at this next public forum, that it gives the public, specifically the neighbors specifically in that area, even neighbors that aren't in that area, the opportunity in that meeting to come up with a consensus from that group about whether this is a good thing or not. And then if we could have the opportunity to bring it back to us after that meeting and get the results of something that's a little more robust about what the participants of that forum have to say about the medians, it gives us the feedback to give our recommendation. I think it's really hard for us to make a recommendation without a more thorough vetting of, you know, what the residents' position is with regards to these medians. So that would be my recommendation as a commissioner, and not just can the thing because I don't have enough feedback to make that decision. There could be a lot more positive feedback given the negative feedback we've had today, and kind of let that forum be the opportunity to bring that in some kind of quantity to back to us to get an understanding of what the residents want.
I frankly don't think we need another forum. I think it's really clear, but anyway.
Well, it was clear for the people that were here, but that's not potentially an opportunity to have all of the residents that want to give their...
We didn't have anyone saying the opposite, did we?
Well, they were concerned there wasn't enough notice anyway on the meeting to even participate. So are we being fair if we don't give everyone the opportunity?
I'd like just to make a point on process, because I think it's really important in serving the city. I think, Sarah, it's clear today what the sentiment is, and I suspect that in a public, the next public workshop, that it will be that on, and just amplified even further. Some of the safety actually was concerning to me just in hearing the presentation that Bob presented and looking at where they're planning to put those medians, because they're very close to intersections where you really want to keep the view open, particularly if you have trucks and cyclists and cars all sharing the space. But as a newcomer, I think it's really important that our town, that everybody feels like they have a voice and that they're heard, and that we manage process so that our community feels like when they come to the city and when they interact with us, that people feel satisfied. They may not like the outcome, but they feel satisfied with the process. That was something that, Bob, we spoke about when I'd had an onboarding with you, that I think is really important at a time where in our communities there's a lot of divisiveness. At least if people can agree that they may not like the outcome, but at least they feel respected and satisfied with the process they went through. So I think we heard from a number of people suggesting a continuation. I don't know that we necessarily need that, but I would like to recommend that we proceed with a second public workshop. The one you presented was over 2 years ago and before the pandemic. So I think having a current public workshop that we work hard to get the information out so that it is a packed house where people in the community can feel like their voices are heard. And then if you need us to come back and provide a recommendation to the council, we can. But that would be my recommendation. I'd also like to thank all of the people that were here today, because it's having the notice, you know, I think as someone newer, I think our Public Works Department wasn't intending to not provide full information. It was really helpful to hear Bob's perspective that the public notice that was handed out actually was meant to enhance the notice and bring more people here. But I think it's a great example of how positive intent can backfire, right, if it's not properly executed, right? And it can make, I think there's probably a lot of negative sentiment felt about improperly noticing or not knowing, or how do our neighbors, right? And I think we want to remove that so that everybody, we give people the opportunity to comment and not have things like that backfire that can amplify negative sentiment. But thank you to all of you that did come. It was helpful to hear your perspective.
I would have to say I feel the same. I would really like to thank everybody who came, because I'm extremely sensitive to what everybody said, and I think that many of us, I certainly could hear and see the points that were being made. I think we are probably not in a position to make a decision that would go forward without more public input. And perhaps it might be more of the same. But I think that giving the opportunity to the other members, it sounds as though the notice wasn't as it should be. So there could perhaps be more people that would like to have a voice in this. But I certainly share in some of these concerns as well. And so I think that in the spirit of trying to get as much input as we can, that perhaps we do push it off. And whether or not we have another forum, then we come back again and have an opportunity if our suggestions are, asked for at that time.
Well, Director, I think you got a consensus from the commission in terms of where we stand at this point, and we are appreciative of all that participated today, and look forward to what I'm sure will be robust communication in the next workshop. So,
well, I did today would be robust as well. And if I may, I think it would probably be helpful at the next workshop. We'll try to quantify things, because we're hearing, yes, it was 2 years ago. We're hearing, no one was in favor, that's not true, or everyone was opposed, that's not true. So maybe we'll get a specific quantity. 40% are in favor, 60% are not in favor, 10% want 4 islands, 90% want 2 islands, whatever. So we'll try to quantify things the best we can. So when we do return, we'll at least we'll have some more specific data as opposed to the he said, she said type of thing.
And can you, prior to the public workshop, is it possible to include in that notice that you put those cones back up so that people can have the opportunity prior to the meeting to, how do you say, experience what the current proposal is?
okay, well, moving on with orders of business, we will have a presentation by our forester regarding the steering and technical advisory committees for the Urban Forest Management Plan.
Thank you.
That cleared the room.
Not the first one.
So, back to our management plan. So the city code tells us that this commission is to develop a management plan for our urban forest. But I have strong feelings that a master plan comes before a management plan. So getting a bigger, higher level vision and broad long-term goals into a master plan. And then dialing the management plan down into the strategies and tactics to achieve what is in that master plan. So as a part of this whole process, we were able to secure a grant from CAL FIRE to fund a street tree inventory, as well as the creation of this plan. So initially, I'll be working with our consultants, Davie Resource Group, to crunch the numbers and the data. So what information is coming back from our inventory, and how is that going to frame our larger discussions around planning? So this is kind of my lane. I love a good plan. I truly do, and I also love public outreach. But I'm having a little bit of a struggle in terms of scale. The last realm that I worked in that involved planning was literally 150 times larger than this community. So again, last time I undertook something like this, we had a steering committee of 31 people for 600,000 people. So figuring out the scale for this community and how to put together a steering committee for the master plan has been a little bit of a challenge. The first idea would be to use the full commission as the steering committee. That could be one option. Or you could create another steering committee, aside from you, populated with different individuals that would report back to the commission itself. So those are two options. Also in line with the steering committee, it's very common to have a technical advisory committee. So those will be the people, always include someone from academia, someone from planning, from public safety, as well as public works. So those city partners, those agencies are going to help merge the master plan that we're developing to match our other guiding governing documents. So the general plan, the design transitions guidelines, those sort of things, as well as thinking about traffic and sight triangles and things to move around emergency vehicles. So that TAC, we like to call it, is kind of the behind the scenes, kind of gut check people. Like, is this even reasonable or doable? And is it founded in good science? So, with that being said, my initial, again, remember my scale question. My first question is, should the steering committee for the master plan be the commission, or would you like to see something different?
Do you want this to be interactive?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Do we have any plan? Are we building upon an existing master plan?
There is one, I believe it's 23 years old at this point. It's a little bit dated, and it definitely could use a freshen up. The field of urban forestry has been developing over those 2 decades, so we have a lot more information about social issues that involve the urban forest, as well as environmental and technical arboriculture. So though that plan is fine, it's just we can bring it up into this modern era.
In your non-only commission possible steering committee, what can you maybe elaborate along the lines of what you envision that to be? How many people?
Well, again, that's where I need your help in terms of scale.
Okay.
I'm always a more the merrier type of person, so I'd be happy to populate the whole room if it was up to me. Perhaps 7 is a manageable number. I think today was a really great example of how it's important to include more people up front. So does 7 seem like a good number for you? Too small, too big?
In addition to the Forest and Beach Commission, or 7 total?
That would be up to you. So you would have your standard commission work that you would need to do, so these meetings and such, but working as a steering committee, there would be additional time that would need to go to that. So you kind of double up your time.
So in that 7, perhaps it would be you're one of the 7, maybe a commissioner would be one of the 7, and then you'd have perhaps 5 residents. Is that kind of your thought process?
Yeah, that would be good. Myself as being the project manager and our consultants, we're looking to the steering committee to steer our work, not the other way around. We're not guiding your work. It's really going to be community created. So it's up to you guys how much work you want to take on and what you think is reasonable.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment, and the forester and I have had this conversation more than once. As former Mayor Dallas mentioned, our workload is overwhelming, including the foresters for sure. If the commission decides to have a steering committee, well, let me back up. A technical advisory committee, where do I sign up? That's definitely an important element. That's really, I couldn't agree more. The Forest and Beach Commission still has a role in the forest management plan. So if there were to be a third body called the steering committee, we already have the master plan to manage. There would also be Forest and Beach Commission presentations. There would also be steering committee meetings. There would also be technical advisory committee meetings. So in the interest of workload, please, I beg you, if the Forest and Beach Commission can serve, because you're already going to be, getting presentations about the urban forest management plan. if you could also serve as in the role as a steering committee as well, that would make our jobs quite a bit easier as opposed to yet another body. Another comment I would have is over in the planning department, they've have some challenges having multiple ad hoc committee, the technical advisory committee for like the design traditions. Very hard. They've been getting challenged. Some people quit. They don't attend meetings. Getting 8 or 10 people in a room at the same time is challenging any day of the week. So it adds another. It's not that it's a bad idea. It's just that, get back to what the foresters were saying on the scale, perhaps we can tone this down to something that's more manageable by having the Forest and Beach Commission, which certainly has a role here for sure, 100%. A technical advisory committee is also very important. So I would suggest, hint, that the commission consider workload as part of the decision, Sarah's decision, or question number 1 on should this commission be the steering committee or should there be another body? That's all I got.
That's a long way of getting around.
So
asking us
I
to be
guess
on
my
the committee.
question, Bob, on that would be is if we were the steering committee, so because I mean, again, the master plan of the forest, I mean, I think someone like Ramey and the Friends of Carmel Forest should be involved in this. You know, Dale and Carmel Cares could potentially be involved in this because they're all a part of a support group around the implementation of that master plan downstream, and to not have their input or as a part of a committee that's looking at those things would be a mistake, I think.
I think, though, that we really need to have residents of Carmel, and Ramey is so.
Well, Ramey is, but Friends of Carmel Forest are, whether it's Ramey or it's the new president that they've, someone that's got the interest. Oh, so there she is. I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. You were
Do you live in Carmel?
Commissioner Sowers brings up an excellent comment, and you're right.
I mean, they could be advisors to the Forest and Beach Commission.
Yes.
I mean, if that's how
yes, it is
makes
appropriate to
easier.
have. Yes, if they have the technical expertise, such as Friends of Carmel Forest, perhaps that would be a good fit for the technical advisory committee. If it's more policy oversight, guidance, direction, that could supplement when we do have future meetings of the urban forest management plan to this body. Perhaps additional people can supplement your commission for those particular items.
And that from a workload standpoint,
Yeah.
that would be a much more efficient way of doing things?
Much more efficient, yes, because it'd be the same, one and the same meetings as opposed to another meeting.
Understood.
Would it be possible for us to notice the community of the plan, and B, the need to have a steering committee is forming to help with the plan development? Like notice in our community, see if we could have people apply to potentially join us so that we end up having the commissioners, because I think at least I'd be happy to help, right? But the commissioners, but also have input from our citizens. You know, we had a pretty decent showing here today on another important topic, right? And I think this plan ends up being an important plan that we want people to be bought into, and we don't want to end up at the end of the process people feeling like they didn't have the opportunity to participate.
Like I said, I'm a more the merrier type of person. So.
Sarah, if I may, could you explain, there is another public outreach component to this whole project as well, above and beyond the steering committee and technical advisory committee. As part of implementing the urban forest management plan, there's a public workshop or two or something?
There's more than one or two. Yeah. I think that we learned from the benches on Scenic Pathway, we have to use different tactics to get voices from everyone to be heard. From paper handouts to direct mailing to online surveys to leveraging social networks online. So it will be all trees all the time, and because it's a very, very sticky subject in Carmel-by-the-Sea. People really love their trees, people really don't like their trees. So it's very important, I feel, as the project manager, to collect as much information as I possibly can, so that this is truly the community's plan. This isn't Sarah's plan, this is the community's plan. So yes, there'll be lots of outreach.
And Sarah, what's your timeline on putting together these specific committees? What are you hoping for?
Well, it's time of year when we have holidays and vacations and all that fun stuff that gets in the way, as well as we have some kickoff work that we need to do with our consultant. So I would hope that we could have the committee assembled and ready to meet perhaps in late January.
Okay, so if then you were able to get a commitment from the respective commissioners, whoever would like to participate in either or, it sounds like we should choose the steering versus the technical, most likely, I'm assuming, based off of our skill sets. I don't know, maybe I might speak out of turn. Then would it make sense to get out with our outreach through the website, through an ad in the paper that is encouraging our local citizenry, our residents, to get in touch with you about joining said committee and have a cutoff maybe by the end of the year? Is that enough time?
Yes.
Is that enough time? Do you guys think?
Sure. Yes.
Well, I'll certainly, I've heard already Commissioner Becky say that she would like to participate, as would I, so I'm happy to be a part of the steering committee.
So would I.
So would I.
Come on.
I'm a little bit wrapped a little bit around the climate committee thing and that, as well as the beach side of things. And I don't know that I want to get too wrapped up into the tree thing, just because I know there's a lot. I'm kind of a beach guy.
Understood.
So I can throw my hat in.
That gives us a good enough bench, I think, and obviously you're bringing some other pieces to the table when it comes to the climate piece and the work that you're doing in the beaches, and that helps us put the whole or bigger plan together at some point anyway. So, so there's initial direction that you've got 4 of your commissioners that want to be a part of this, and I don't know that we cap it per se. I think we open it up. I think the only thing that, I mean, from my perspective, and please weigh in, but that people that want to participate make a commitment to actually participate on a regular basis through the term of what it's going to take to get this done. The kind of the popping in, popping out, I would really, wouldn't feel very good about that. And, wouldn't feel it'd be very helpful.
I'm a big fan of creating a charter for bodies. These are the expectations of the members. This is how we're going to participate. This is how we're going to communicate. So having that framework ahead of time, saying you have to come to this many meetings, is put up front.
But I think even when we reach out to residents, it would be great if you could have that together. So I think it would be helpful. Just again, process-wise, I think the more we can reach out to the community in a way that people, that we can say that we put a good effort in attempting to seek participation, right, is always useful and helpful. And then if you can frame up what that commitment looks like, I completely agree. You can't have people in and out.
You're a big fan of putting a charter together, so does that mean you'll put one together?
Yeah, so if you're comfortable with me putting it together, fine. And that's just like the Girl Scout leader in me. At the beginning of every camping trip, all the girls agree what they're gonna do and not do, and they hold each other accountable to not wearing their shoes in the tent or running with a knife, sort of thing. So I feel comfortable in putting up a really basic charter with expectations.
And I don't know, what do you guys think? Where else should we get this message out? I mean, anyone that's participating in the meeting still, probably. How many people we have on? 2? What's left? 3. Plus we have, a member in the chamber, so obviously we want to get the message out. We need to find some other ways. I'm not sure necessarily standing down by the post office with handouts is the way to do it.
But you're so good at that.
I like to do it, it's fun, but.
We could ask for applications, and you could review the applications and then decide
That's good.
if the four of you will do it, or if you want, a couple of strategic people. I mean, would that be possibly a route?
Sounds good.
Yeah. So we would do that again with the website, and then also would we be able to spend a little money through
Yes.
the Pine Cone then?
Yes.
Okay. Any other ideas?
And maybe just in that specify the resident piece, right? So that we, if it's for the city, right, it's for our town, then we should have that be a requirement of probably participation.
And do we want to decide on a number that we're looking for? And
It sounds like it's going to be a toss-up of how many we find that are good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It took us a long time to get this many
yeah,
commissioners, though.
exactly.
It's going to take to get them on the committee.
If I can make a comment about the commissioners who might be a little bit more reluctant to serve on the steering committee, when although there are many other good causes like beaches and climate, when the when the urban forest management plan is presented to the Forest and Beach Commission, all 5 of the members will be here. Don't have to pay attention, but you'll all be here. So whether you're a part of the steering committee or a steering committee per se or not, you'll still be making any kind of voting decisions. So I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
And do we want to, if we didn't hear back, for example, from some key players here in the city, like a Dale Byrne, do we reach out to certain people? Is that something we might want to do as well? I would imagine they would hear about it, but if you're talking about getting key people, a person in academia, a person in, if we don't find that, do we, decide we want to reach out?
I think if we just put it out, we'll get people who are interested and want to
Yep.
participate.
Most likely, we're all interacting with
Most
those
of them.
folks, so I
Right,
think
right.
word of mouth is
That's what I would
probably going to be
imagine.
one of the biggest winners, so.
Right.
Yeah, okay. What else?
Okay, so also, are you comfortable then with me tossing together the application and putting it out on the street? Or do you want to see it first?
I think we can
what you want to try to accomplish with the
Okay.
plan.
trust you to kind of move
Yeah,
forward
I
with
think
it.
we could do the application administratively.
Okay.
But we'll bring back an assortment of potential candidates to this body at the next meeting or two when we're ready.
Just make sure you tell them how much fun we are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's always going to be snacks. One thing to also remember, though, since we have most of the commission on the steering committee, they will all have to be public meetings, and we have to abide by the Brown Act when we're communicating through email and such.
Yep, fair enough. Okay. Anything else on this?
No. Perhaps our guest would like to weigh in.
Oh, that's
yeah.
true. We can open it up.
Quick question for the forester. If someone applies who would be a good fit for the TAC, then that would also, we'd bring that back and say, we recommend person A, B, and C for TAC and
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z to add, to bolster the commission for the steering committee,
Yeah, sure.
right? Okay.
Great, then we'll go ahead and open up to public comment.
So I'm Maria Sutherland, Friends of Carmel Forest. Of course, we'd be happy to assist in this manner. I know that one of the technical academic subject matter experts that we use is Dr. Matt Ritter from Cal Poly.
Already on speed.
Great. And he's been giving us information about what trees to use as the climate changes and what would be appropriate. So I would definitely recommend him, and we're also happy to send out a notice via our mailing list to get others interested.
Thank you, I really appreciate that.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And is there perhaps anybody online that might have their hand up?
Is everyone still listening?
There are some people. There are no one with their hand raised at this moment.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion, and I think there wasn't any additional need for discussion amongst us, so should we move on with our orders of business? It's back to our famous forester. It looks like it's time for the city forester's monthly report for October 2022.
I'm almost there. Hang on. Okay. You all have it in front of you. So of course you'll see our permitted removals versus permitted required plantings that go with those removals. Nothing really new or shocking there.
Excuse me, Sarah, did you want this on our screen?
Do you want me to put it on the screen?
Yeah, we got it. No,
Okay.
never mind.
Okay, so our removals are down, which is good. That's a good trend to see. Our replanting requirements, we're still trending with more upper canopy trees being required than lower canopy trees. We are on track with our planting. So we're at 28, and that will just keep increasing each month over the winter. Our overall contacts from the public was slightly down, which is always a lot of work. So that's nice for that one period of time. So we have been out putting signs up for where we would like to plant trees. I started on Casanova, going from Santa Lucia north to Ocean. The signs are put out, and if somebody doesn't want a tree or has a question, they have a way to contact us. I will say that people are very excited to have smaller statured trees underneath the power lines. So the goal is to offer ornamental trees under the power lines, and on the opposite side of the street are traditional upper canopy trees. So that's been going over pretty well. And we do now have our on-call landscape maintenance contractor. So we're putting them to work, working on some areas of town that need a little help. Right now, they're going to start working on the easement at San Carlos and 3rd, doing some work at the parking lot of Sunset Center, as well as doing some sprucing up at the playground. And I'm gonna turn them loose on the upper sections of Ocean Avenue. There's a lot of things that just need to be cleaned up there, and I'm sure that the young people would appreciate that when they're walking to and from school. So they are underway. We're about to send out onto the street our on-call bid for tree services. So those would be the contractors that we have at our disposal for things that our in-house crew can't take care of, or any supplemental work that we still have cash for at the end of the year. They'll be able to do that, as well as some of the more technical line clearance work. That's what the contractors are used for, as well as emergencies. Let's see here, and those are my highlights. The Christmas lights are going up in Devendorf now. The lights are up on the Ocean medians. I believe the very last one here at Lincoln and Monteverde, I think that should be up by now. We ran out of lights. So those are all up, and we're just getting ready for the holidays.
Great.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for our forester? And then from us, then I'll open it up to public comment.
Thank you. This past couple of weeks, we had an over trimming of the Co-America oak tree, and we just wanted to request that you put it, that you check on the tree in 5 to 7 years, because we have an excellent example of an over trim right around the corner in 2015 by Carmel Realty, and the trees are now dying. So thank you so much.
A very involved resident bring that to our attention. So yes, the tree service now knows to not prune that much every year after year. So thank you for that.
Are there any additional comments from our online community? Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on with our orders of business. Looks like our last order of business will be the Public Work Director's monthly report for October 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep this short because you had enough of me. City Council meetings. October, we already talked about the landscape maintenance contract, the Town and Country. At the November 1st council meeting last week, Commissioner Sowers might want to listen up for this. Council awarded a $175,000 contract to a consortium of EMC Planning, Harrow Kasunich Geotechnical Engineers, and Integral Consultants, I guess they're called, to implement the coastal engineering and beach sand survey study projects. The big project, we have our kickoff meeting on Monday, November the 14th. So it is starting. They're related.
Is that a public meeting, pardon me?
No, it's
Just internal.
with the consultants. This is really the nuts and bolts. Get the project going. There will be some changes related to this. Is the Climate Committee, their initial charter, so to speak, was to oversee the development of the climate action plan and climate adaptation plan. That work has been completed. Those plans were adopted by the City Council. They're available on our website. Council requested that the Climate Committee continue on to oversee this particular coastal engineering / beach sands study as the first big ticket. There's other initiatives underway in climate change resiliency. This is the first big ticket project. The Climate Committee consists of 2 council members. One of the council members, Carrie Tice, who is will be leaving the council in December. So there will be a vacancy there. 2 of the 4 public members have resigned. So there's going to be some changes to that Climate Committee. We don't know the new makeup quite yet, but that new form of whatever that committee is, and if someone wants to apply, now it might be a nudge. Is that a statement there, Bob? If I said Bukowski's chair, I would have a little nudge.
You can move further away.
Why? Just why? Yeah. This is our third meeting, right? Second? Second. All right.
And they're both long.
That's what you got. Well, the clock is wrong. Yeah. It seems like that. So anyway, the new format of the Climate Committee will receive updates from the coastal engineering consultant, probably the first being in maybe 3 months from now, as the first of 4 or 5 major tests start happening. So anyway, stand by for that. That's a big impact on our beach.
Is Jeff still a lead on that?
Jeff.
Barron.
Councilman Barron is still on the Climate Committee, yes. That's it for council items. Capital improvement projects. The one thing to really report is we have some things going on soon in the Mission Trail Nature Preserve. First is we're in the home stretch now we talked about this before. We have 3 stream stability projects to be constructed in the Mission Trails at the south end of the park near Rio. One's a footbridge and 2 are drainage related. They're important for the stream. The project design is done. We're submitting now applications for environmental permits, Army Corps of Engineers, Fish and Wildlife Service. So we're getting into some challenging permitting, but we're in the home stretch. So that will be happening soon. We hope to be under construction in the fall, in the spring. And nearby the Mission Trail, we have that well that we're going to abandon, the pump house and the above ground water tank. That gets a lot of graffiti on it. So we're preparing the specifications to have that removed. We've done some asbestos and lead paint testing to see if there's any hazardous material. I don't know the results of that yet. And we have another environmental consultant reviewing that project as well for additional environmental permits. So small projects, but challenging projects from a regulatory perspective. So anyway, but those are going, and hopefully both of those will be in construction next year. That's it for capital. Climate Committee, I think we kind of covered that, unless there's a question.
Thanks for getting the mulch on the admission.
I was doing that on miscellaneous.
Too bad.
Okay, volunteer organizations. I'm going to start off with the Wheaties. The Wheaties is a group of some master gardeners and other volunteers that are sponsored by the Friends of the Mission Trail Nature Preserve. They do their, I think it's the second Saturday morning of each month. They go on the Mission Trail Nature Preserve and do some great jobs. They really did a fantastic job above and beyond in October, cleaning up the Cerro Trail, which is fantastic work. Jumping back to our friends at Carmel Cares, the downtown details really making some great progress in downtown beautification projects, potted plants, graffiti removal, cleaning up medians. We are looking at, the city is more rather than Carmel Cares, we're looking at testing a mulch-looking rubberized tree well things for tree wells. Yes. It's hot off the press. The city of Monterey uses all the plates, but they have ugly black, it's rubber, it's pervious to water, which is good. It's low maintenance, it lasts a long time, there's a lot of benefits to it. We found one that is more mulch looking. We are looking at, perhaps in the next month or two, we're going to test one somewhere, one would say where, we'll keep it hidden, see if anyone says anything. We're going to do a test, we're going to test run, see how it is. And if so, then we'll maybe make a decision to go forward, but we're not there yet.
Maybe avoid San Carlos.
Yeah, we're not. Oh, I'm not even.
Let's not lump anymore.
I'm not even driving that street anymore. I'll wear a hat or something.
Over here he comes.
Back to Carmel Cares. Oh, like Mr. Byrne already mentioned this, Forest Theater landscaping, with the construction permit was recently issued. They are ready to rock and roll. It sounds like they're going to start as soon as tomorrow. The Scenic Pathway Guardrail Repair Project. We received the plan now. So we're looking at reviewing the plan for where there's missing pieces, broken pieces, outdated pieces, whatever, falling apart pieces, all kinds of different things. So it's a color-coded plan. It's got all kinds of different colors. It's pretty cool. So anyway, we're reviewing the plan now, and there's Carmel Cares also, on behalf of the city, went out to bid for the materials. So the city's going to pay for the materials, hand the material, lumber, bolts and stuff, hand the material to Carmel Cares, and Carmel Cares volunteers and their contractors would be installing them. So stand by for that. That's coming soon. And it's just a new project for Carmel Cares to keep them busy. They're looking at the restoration of the Bates mural next to the Nielsen Market. Mm-hmm. So that's a very interesting project. It's not really Forest and Beach related. I just thought it was cool, something really different. So just wanted to share that. That's it for volunteers. Miscellaneous. Last month, Forrester and others and I spoke to the now departed finance manager about many things. One of them, like grant reimbursements, the CAL FIRE grant that Sarah mentioned for the Urban Forest Management Plan is one of them. But more importantly, the reforestation account. If we recall, in meetings past, if the Forest and Beach Commission assesses a fine on people who cut down trees without permission, so okay, we'll pay the X dollars we'll put into the reforestation deposit account. Okay.
I'm sorry, I've kind of lost track. Is this all of the funds that I've always been asking about? Where is that money sitting?
The parklet money?
It's not the parklet money.
It's the money that we fine people for doing. Yes. So there is. Is there a fund out there right now that's?
It's a deposit account.
It's in a deposit.
So that's what, when we met with the finance manager, like, okay, where is that money? How much do we have? It's over $100,000. Yeah. It is there. It's collecting. I guess it's collecting interest at least. It is there. And all we need to do, and then, it's you to say all we need to, we need to identify a project. We want to get the Forest and Beach Commission, hey, that's a great project for this reforestation fund. And then we have to get city council to authorize to spend that money. So we don't, so like we write a check and start spending that money, but it is there. The money is there. Okay, so that was good to hear, because there's been a lot of turnover of finance department, and we want to make sure it's still there. Still there. Great.
And so as soon as he told you that, he's no longer there anymore?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll ask the next person. Hey, you sure it's still there? We had $100,000 we used to. This is more in the environmental programs arena, which we don't talk about very often. But as you may know, the Monterey Bay is what's called an area of special biological significance. For the State Water Quality Control Board, that's a big deal. So every contaminant that goes out into the ocean or into the river, into the creek and Mission Trail, like it's out to Carmel River, which goes out to the ocean, all of that's important water quality issues. So we've been testing contaminants for at least the last 4 years very carefully with reports and chemical analysis and reports to the Water Quality Control, all that kind of terribly boring stuff. What we're finding consistently, though, which does relate to forest and beach, one is copper, which is more architectural copper, so planning is considering phasing out copper, but anyway, it's a different story. But what is concerning is dog fecal bacteria. Dog fecal bacteria is coming from dog waste throughout the watershed, but it seems like more than a fair share is coming from the beach, on the beach. So we know, we've seen it. People, they don't clean up after their dog, or they leave the droppings there, assuming someone's going to pick it up. Maybe it doesn't happen. So as we test the waters offshore, we're detecting, and we've been detecting this for 4 years now. It's not getting any better. It's not getting any worse, but it's not going away. So we're going to be starting to kick up more public education. We have mutt mitts. I don't know what else we could do.
Well, I can give you one suggestion. This is just an off-the-wall beach walking guy who picks up a lot of bags that people leave on the beach.
Yep.
And I think a lot of that problem is, I think if we put some poop boxes down at the bottom of the stairs and could clean those up on a, I don't know, once a week time basis, because people they leave them at the bottom of the stairs for whatever reason. They don't want to haul them up the stairs and drop them in.
They think they're going to come back and get them, and then they use a different stairway.
But I think if we could, much more the mitts are, if we could bring something down to the bottom of the stairs where people could drop their bags in it, I think we'd get a lot more people dropping their bags there instead of leaving them on the beach. Because every time I go to the beach, I'm picking up someone else's bag that they've left down there.
The other thing that happens, though, is the dogs get behind you, and you know, they start to talk to other people, or they're just walking.
True. There's a bit of
I've
that.
several times and I always have extra bags, and I've said, your dog, you know, just left it.
Right. But there are a lot, because I pick up a lot. There are a lot of people that leave bags on the beach.
Yeah, they do.
And it's not only just the bags of poop, it's plastic.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it's just because they don't want to carry it up the stairs to the
If you
garbage
ask them, they
can.
say they're going to come back and pick it up.
Or they
make a little mound.
And I'm just wondering if we did a test program and put.
I'll relay that. Yeah, that's a great idea.
See whether that has an impact. I don't know that it would, but I just think that there's a lot of bags that get left down there because people just don't want to carry it up to the garbage cans.
I will certainly relay that suggestion to the environmental compliance manager.
It's a thought.
It's a very good thought. And we need, I guess my bigger point here, we need to go from, gee, it's inconvenient, it's smelly, it's disgusting, to it's being enforced upon us. We must do something. We better do something.
We don't have any signs that say pick up after reminding people, and we could put some signs both at Mission Trail, because I've seen several there, and at the beach. And it really would be okay.
It would be particularly, it would be helpful to figure out how to put the right messaging there, because I think it would be, the dogs on the beach in Carmel is a huge asset to our community.
Yeah, it is.
This is a dog town, right? And so it would be unfortunate to have what you're discovering end up in, reduced hours of beach time for dogs, et cetera.
Well, that
right?
has
So we
already,
need to,
that's
we
been
need to,
discussed
we
by
need
the
to
city
educate our,
council.
we need to educate our users, right? So that, to make sure we keep the beach open.
Yeah, I think you're right on. It's the education,
Education.
more education, like just knowing it here and hearing about the, steady number over the last 4 years, but it's a big number. That's something that needs to get out in the community. I don't know why those bags are green. They should be bright orange or bright yellow. I'm serious. That seems like it'd be a lot more.
We do have some for sale that are bright orange, but we all pick green because it's better.
For the record, if I could correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the city spends $22,000 a year on mutt mitts, those ugly green mutt mitts. And I think the colorful ones are more expensive, so.
Might be worth it. Maybe that's where
Believe it or
$100,000 goes.
Well, there's $100,000.
That's what I just said.
Commissioner Sauer. When I go to budget meetings, I'm just like Commissioner Sowers. What? We got $4 million? I got a project. That's pretty funny. All right. Just a quick note on Pac Rep Theater. Their performances and things are in the city park called Forest Theater Park. Now that they're under our lease agreement formally, two things I wanted to report. One is that they've completed their investment of $17,000 for their initial required capital upgrade, which was the reconstructed stage floor. They have a little rigging system. They did electrical upgrades. So they met their requirements. The city spent $60,000 for initial upgrades. Most of that went to that big truss system. There's $55,000 of it, but we also did electrical and some other things. So anyway, that's good news for their productions. Also, for the month, or for the period July 1st through September 30th, they had 39 performances and a total attendance of 11,801 people.
Cool.
So it's being used. It is being used. And Carmel Cares has been taking great care of it, and it's going to be even better now with the new landscape.
And Pac Rec they do put some really fun
Yeah,
performances.
Last but not least, as Commissioner Burnham already said, we've completed putting fresh wood chips along the Sarah and Willow Trail and the Little Fire Road. And we've used up a significant portion of our wood chip stockpile in Rio Park.
It's still a big.
It's still a big pile, and we're looking at somehow getting rid of more of that somewhere. So that's all I got. That's the report. Happy to answer any questions, or we can open up to public comments.
Any questions from the commission? Sounds like it was a relatively interactive presentation. I'll open it up to the public. How's our online community? Has everybody dropped off by now? And they're eating dinner, they totally forgot.
Yeah, I forgot he was on.
All right, well, let's see. Then with orders of business completed, let's put it out there for future agenda items. No? Future. Okay, logging out, perfect. Any future agenda items?
We have, I believe, at least three public hearings so far for the next meeting. We'll come back at a future date for the meeting islands after the workshop. Future date for urban forest management plan stop and the steering committee / TAC committee.
Any news from Planning Commission on a response on the benches at all?
Not a word.
Okay.
Well, then with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate everyone's participation.
Today is Thursday.
Had to see that one coming.
No, I knew that was coming. I was well.